Chapter 181, As Firm as the Pyramid. The next morning, Fishbone's flag was raised at the town hall of Shangxiang Town, proclaiming that it had officially become part of the territory of Fishbone Base. Under the supervision of 20 riflemen, more than 200 survivors carrying cement bags and steel bars arrived at Tapu River. They would be under the leadership of 20 engineers that Fishbone dispatched to establish defense facilities on the riverside. Although they were still being forced to engage in manual labor, Jiang Chen's treatment of them was far better than the mutated humans. Not only did he distribute winter clothes bought from the 6th Street, but he also didn't use whip in order to force them to work harder. As long as they were not slacking off, they would not be punished for failing to finish the project on time. During his encounter with Shangxiang Town, Jiang Chen used a completely different strategy compared to winning over the group of survivors in Qingpu area. As a result of being situated outside of the city where the population density was extremely low, the zombies in town were obliterated. After more than 10 years of hard work, the town was finally cleared of zombies. It can be said that they lived in comfort these past years compared to those struggling survivors in the metropolis. Thus, their combat ability was also much weaker, and the difficulty of enlisting them was also naturally lesser. For instance, the survivors in Shangxiang Town were all hose-wielding farmers, while the survivors of Qingpu were gun-wielding hunters. For the nomadic hunters, Jiang Chen adopted a strategy of trading, enticing, and then assimilating. For these farmers, however, he adopted a straightforward approach in assimilating them in his military force. All the survivors implanted with slavery microchips were directly promoted to the management position, and the construction of infrastructure was handed over to more than 700 newly joined members. So far, this was how the pyramid's governing structure was established. Jiang Chen merely needed to keep a firm grip on the people on the top layer of the pyramid, and there would naturally be people under him who would take charge on his behalf for the matters in the bottom layer. In order to supervise the construction of the defensive structure, Lu Huasheng personally took along a team to take over the construction. The 200 survivors were split into 20 teams, with each team being led by one engineer dispatched from Fishbone Base, as they worked round the clock to construct the defensive structure. On the other side, on Shangxiang Town's eastern part of the wilderness, more than 200 survivors were struggling to develop the barren land. Here, one had to admire Jiang Chen's foresight to feed the survivors in his own base with green food. Regardless whether or not it was done out of consideration, it was only now it was showing its merit. If someone consumed this type of thick nutrient supply, one would urinate more frequently, but it would definitely be a long time before one would feel the need to defecate. The survivors, who were busy clearing out the barren lands, were stunned when they saw a vehicle full of dried manure being pulled into the hill on the side of the farm. The mutated crops consumed a high amount of nutrients from the soil, and the fertilizer made out of mutants or zombies would increase the contamination of the soil toxicity. Thus, they would naturally consider human waste as an option. They usually had to purchase industrial fertilizer from 6th Street to supplement the fertility of the soil. How valuable was this waste? At first, Jiang Chen hadn't given it much thought, but instead felt the impact of this on health was quite significant. It was not until the survivors of Qingpu offered a contract to clean their base that he began to notice the problem. In this wasteland, human waste seemed to be extremely valuable too. Wangai City was located in the plains, where mineral deposits were extremely scarce in the surrounding area. Although nitrogen could be obtained through artificial nitrogen fixation technology and potassium could also be extracted from seawater, phosphorus scarcity was much harder to resolve. The cost of extracting phosphorus from a mutant organism or plant was not exactly low, and the main cost of producing fertilizer in the 6th Street was higher than this phosphorus. Excrement, however, was quite easy to handle. Its nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium contents were very rich and only needed to be mixed into the soil and then sprinkle the seeds. Under Jiang Chen's direction, the farm's plot expanded from 100 acres to thousands of acres. If all of it was used to grow palm tree, it was estimated that it could provide 100 tons of carm resin per month. In this case, not only would it meet the industrial needs of Fishbone Base, it could also be exported to the 6th Street. Based on the prevailing price of 150 crystals per ton, the farm would bring Fishbone Base a revenue of 10,000 crystals per month. As for the ration of more than 700 people, provided there were 30 days in a month, 2 nutrient supplies per day, and if one dose of nutrient cost 0.1 crystal, it would only amount to more than 4,000 crystals. As for those expensive provisions, after taking Sun Jiao's advice into consideration, Jiang Chen decided not supply them to the newly joined survivors for the time being. As for the reason, it was not because he was stingy, but rather it was to reinforce social class structure. Unlike those survivors that were already implanted with microchips and sold themselves to Jiang Chen, if these precious rations were given too casually, it wouldn't make these foreigners feel grateful. On the contrary, it's likely that they would come to feel that it was too easy, and this might even give birth to disloyalty. When all was said and done, this was the first time they assimilated more than 700 foreign population, which was practically more than 3 times the population of Fishbone Base, and these 700 people also belonged to the same group. If you just want to enslave them to do manual labor, one just needed to fetter their hands and feet with fetters and handcuffs. However, if you want to digest them, you must split them apart first. The specifics of implementation were also quite simple. 700 people, first split them into 2. First half would remain here, while the rest would be brought back to the Fishbone Base. Those who were brought back would join the factory to engage in manufacturing or enter the new military camp to receive training. At the same time, Jiang Chen announced that every one of them was a slave, and only 2 nutrients mixtures could be obtained every day. But if someone performed outstandingly in their work, his identity would be upgraded to that of a low-class citizen, and daily ration would be upgraded to 2 nutrient mixtures, plus a piece of bread. If you work harder and got upgraded to a middle-class citizen, the ration would turn into 2 nutrient mixtures, in addition to a pack of instant noodles. If they became a high-class citizen, they would be able to enjoy unlimited rations just like those people implanted with microchips, and would be allowed to participate in the communal feeding in the dining hall. Apart from not being able to join management position, they also enjoyed civil rights that were no different from those who were implanted with chips. Once a disparity in status appeared in their small social circle, they would automatically split apart. Those who got promoted would protect their own interests and naturally stand on Jiang Chen's side in order to strive further for a higher promotion. If they had the opportunity to climb up, most people would still choose to be content with what they have. In addition to this, in order to distinguish ranks, all survivors implanted with chips would be conferred with a knight emblem, as a means to encourage their contribution to the construction of Fishbone Base. Moreover, the slavery chip was officially renamed to honorary chip. Despite being the same thing and only the name had changed, Jiang Chen could clearly sense the distinctive difference in the posture of those survivors who got promoted to knights after he promulgated his decision. The sense of honor, if used correctly, would be much more useful than those chips. Of course, only under the premise that everyone could fill their belly would someone be able to pursue that illusory honor. Chapter 182, Birthday. As for those emblems, those were copy military goods that Jiang Chen ordered from wholesale online shopping back from the modern world. The gold-plated appearance looked delicate, workmanship was also fine, and other than the lack of necessary certificates, it was no different than the real ones. Regardless whether it was male or female, both could be honored. On these more than 200 nights, Jiang Chen spent 3 days of effort to complete the knighting process. If high-class citizens wanted to become part of the knight society and enter management, they must have an even more outstanding contribution. For example, meritorious military service or a breakthrough in the technological field, and so on. After going through a busy schedule, the Might of Pyramid was at long last completed. The production and life in the base returned to the right track, and after the introduction of fresh blood, there was more liveliness in the base. 10 days had passed, and the colony became stable. Jiang Chen sent Zhao Gang to be in charge of the colony's defense and moved Cheng Weiguo back to handle the training of the new recruits. The 5 tigers and 30 riflemen were left there and served as a gunship and was transported back. In the same way, Jiang Chen transferred more than 100 newly produced units of hummingbird drones. He also sent some technicians to establish a relay station to control the drones in the local area. These kinds of low-altitude unmanned aerial vehicles have a surprisingly effective scouting and attacking ability. With this batch of drones, it undoubtedly alleviated Fishbone Base's issue of insufficient strength significantly. The production line of the kinetic skeleton under the leadership of Jiang Lin was also completed. For this, Jiang Chen specifically ordered the construction team to build a factory in the newly developed area that could accommodate hundreds of people. Based on Jiang Lin's estimate, provided that there were sufficient raw materials to go around, 30 kinetic skeletons' monthly production could reach 30 units. After handling everything properly, Jiang Chen suddenly found himself free. You couldn't help but praise the talent of the Fishbone Base, which practically comprised of almost every trade in the industry. There were some things that he only needed to set the general direction, and his subordinates would already think of the execution plan for him. By the way, is it almost Yao Yao's birthday? While they were eating, Jiang Chen suddenly asked aloud. He remembered Yao Yao had told him last time that her birthday was in November. It's already mid-November, and he got so busy in the past that he almost forgot. Yao Yao's face instantly turned red. She lowered her head, feeling shy, and said coyly, It's not a big deal. If Big Brother is too busy, then it's okay if we put it off for a while. That's not okay. There is no meaning if the birthday is not on that day. Jiang Chen said without hesitation as he took a huge bite out of the roasted golden chicken leg. Okay. It's on November 16, he. Yao Yao charmingly smiled while staring blankly at the bowl of egg soup in her bowl, gently poking the soft pudding with her spoon unconsciously. November 16, so it's the day after tomorrow. What present does Yao Yao want? Jiang Chen rubbed Yao Yao's head as he smiled. Hearing about the present, Lin, who was sitting across Jiang Chen, perked her ears and immediately shifted her attention away from her bowl of food and raised her hand to interrupt. For your information, my birthday is on May 27, and I want a Hadron Collider. In your dreams, Jiang Chen glared at her. Wu, Lin puffed her cheeks as though throwing a tantrum. The pale and gorgeous face was bloated to a dark, red color. But contrary to Jiang Chen's expectation, she held her tongue this time. She finally remembers how to act when freeloading, Jiang Chen ridiculed in his mind. You have a birthday, that's wonderful. A rare sight where Sun Jiao, who never spoke during meals, looked up. Her mouth was drawn into a grimace while looking outside. This feminine appearance was not typical of this bold girl that Jiang Chen couldn't help but give her a few more looks. Sister Sun Jiao doesn't know your own birthday. Yao Yao looked at Sun Jiao with a hint of sympathy. From Yao Yao's perspective, your birthday should be the happiest day of the year. Before the war, whenever it was her birthday, mother and father would treat her like a princess and took her to eat lots of yummy food. Thinking of her parents, Yao Yao's eyes could not help but flash a touch of sadness. But when she saw Big Brother sitting beside her, a gentle and pure love appeared in her eyes. Her tiny hand softly covered the hand on top of her head. Who would remember that kind of thing? Muttering, Sun Jiao pursed his lips and stared at the hand on top of Yao Yao's head with jealousy. But she didn't say anything. Compared to her initial possessiveness, she was starting to learn how to share. This decision was not due to her magnanimity, but because when the last time that Jiang Chen came back, she faintly read a trace of fatigue from his eyes. When she tried putting herself in his shoes, if she could live in a peaceful environment and become a wealthy girl in a mansion, would she want to come back the world full of chaos? She had already thought of sharing him with Yao Yao for quite some time, but she had not been able to put the idea into motion. Perhaps it was time to push this little girl a bit. With both hands against her chin, she mischievously looked at Lin Lin, who was sitting next to her. To be fair, this girl was also gorgeous, though she was but a digitalized human, but as a sex robot. As though seemingly aware of Sun Jiao's gaze, Lin Lin blankly raised her head, but when she made eye contact with her, she involuntarily shuddered. This female devil must be thinking of something evil. Lin Lin quickly came to a conclusion as she subconsciously went into self-protection mode, fiercely glaring at Sun Jiao. Her threatening look appeared to be saying, "Stop looking at me." However, using deterrent skills against Miss Sun Jiao was undoubtedly a foolish choice, as Sun Jiao just raised her brows and bluntly stared back. The arrogant eyes seemed to say, "I'm looking at you, so what are you going to do?" Like a startled rabbit, Lin Lin quickly lowered her head as she pouted, feeling wronged. I won't celebrate my birthday either. If it's just me, it would feel too devious." After listening to Sun Jiao, Yao Yao sensibly spoke in a quiet voice. Sun Jiao was stunned. A gentle smile appeared on her face. "It's okay, you helped this bad guy so much, it's time for him to treat you. Don't worry about it. If he dared to bully you, sister will step up for you." With that, Sun Jiao even threateningly waved her lovely little fist. Seeing this, Jiang Chen couldn't help but laugh. What else could make men more excited than a harmonious harem? Although this harem's current size was only 1.5. Any request? Yao Yao flushed as she asked faintly. "MHMM." Jiang Chen nodded earnestly, rubbing her fluffy hair. "As long as it's something within my means, I'll do it." Woo, I'll keep it a secret for now." Yao Yao said shyly, her head was lowered, feeling conflicted. Which person can keep the gift she receives confidential? Jiang Chen's face showed a dumbfounded expression. You should at least give me some time to prepare. It would be too late on the day of your birthday." "Prepare right." Yao Yao gently bit her lip as she looked up courageously. With eyes filled with anticipation, she looked at Jiang Chen. Can you lend me a day?" "Lend? If there is something you really want, why don't I just give it to you?" Jiang Chen asked uncertainly. Although this is a very tempting proposal, Sister Sun Jiao would definitely be unhappy, so I'll just borrow you for a day." She stole a glance at Sun Jiao as Yao Yao said softly. "What, am I such a stingy person?" Sun Jiao said with dissatisfaction. "No, that's not what it is, it's just that." Yao Yao anxiously waved her hands and then lowered her head shyly. "I want to borrow, In short, just accompany me for a day, is that okay?" "Is that it?" Jiang Chen couldn't help but facepalm. "Of course, that's it." "It's an entire day. You're not busy, right?" Yao Yao asked quietly. "An entire day? Does that include the night?" Sun Jiao was stunned. Lin Lin suddenly choked on her food. She quickly covered her mouth and reached for the bowl of soup. Yao Yao's face flushed like her blood was about to drip out. Oddly, she didn't rush to offer an explanation. She stared at her knees instead, swinging her pair of smooth and white porcelain-like legs. Jiang Chen was also stunned. He awkwardly scratched his cheek. As soon as these words came out, the atmosphere on the dining table suddenly became tense. I think, considering your age, some things are just too exciting for Yao Yao, so I think the night should be left to me." Sun Jiao carefully shifted her gaze. I am not young anymore." It was rather rare for Yao Yao not to retreat, but she mustered her courage and retorted, "I'm already 3 years over 30. Upon hearing this, Sun Jiao couldn't help but feel shame. She was definitely not backing down just because she exposed her age. "But you spent more than 20 years in the hibernation chamber, right?" Lin Lin chipped in. "Moreover, if the inhibitor was used before adulthood, you would need another 10 more years for you to grow to the maturity 18 years old." 10 years. Yao Yao was like a squirrel that had been frightened, but she was still not ready to give up. "But from any perspective, I am already mature." But the legs dangling on the chair didn't make for convincing argument at all. "Oh, in what way?" Lin Lin persisted, clearly not letting it go. As though abandoning all her humiliation, Yao Yao, with 2 red cheeks, closed her eyes. I already have my period," she bellowed. The room turned eerily silent for a moment. As though the two consecutive verbal sparring had sapped all her energy away, the small, lowly, wobbly sank into her chair. We should discuss the cake. Sun Jiao held her laughter as she averted her gaze. Yes, indeed, the cake is more important. Jiang Chen was speechless. I second that. Lin Lin raised her spoon as an agreement. Chapter 183, The Seventh Area. The snow was ferocious. The concrete walls in the ruins were covered by a layer of ice, and the dangling steel beams were frozen into crystalline rods. Below, ragged figures strolled. There was an unhealthy color on their faces, and their expressions were frozen numb. The heavy loads on their backs crushed their spine and knees. The person standing on the side was evidently the mutated human supervisor. For slaves of mutated human, the only escape was to be picked at around 30 years of age through pure luck. From there, finish the breeding mission, immerse in the growth vial, and to be reborn. As for the people who were not so lucky, their fate was usually tragic. Since the growth vial and growth solution were limited, not everyone had rights to become a mutated human. Mutated humans also needed to maintain a population of slaves in order to complete the dreadful tasks that none of them wanted to do, and at the same time, the mutated humans needed a source of entertainment. Standing at the door of the encampment, Troy grimly watched the frail figures as he turned around to look at the human beside him. That's right, beside him a human stood. Any survivor in Wangai City who happens to witness this scene would drop their jaws. Based on common sense, there was no possibility of negotiation between a mutated human and a human, let alone for them to stand side by side. This person wore a fur coat, and the red ring on his finger was quite distinctive. Anyone with the right knowledge would shockingly discover that the white fur on his collar belonged to the mane of the bloodthirsty lion. As the king of dangerous creatures, bloodthirsty lions could combat 5 death claws simultaneously. Their sharp teeth were like blades that could easily rip through power armors, but they were rare in the eastern area as they usually inhabit in the far northwestern plain. Because of their ferocity, they were rarely hunted. Hence, the unique mane gained popularity among collectors. As for the red ring, it was even more incredible. It was a blood crystal. Usually, mutants would form crystals around the nerve center as a highly efficient energy storage device, but blood crystals were unique on its own. Although they were created with the same elements, blood crystals' energy storage was thousands of times greater. A piece the size of a thumb could be compared to the energy generated from 1 kilogram of fissile material through nuclear fission. But what was beyond comprehension was that the blood crystal's existence was stable. Despite people's attempt, they could not use the energy inside. Not even human, the mutants who generated the blood crystal themselves couldn't utilize the energy inside. Precisely, any mutant who creates these blood crystals would be the failure of the spices. The extraordinary potential and rarity of blood crystals made them a luxurious collector item, especially favored by the nobles in the Northern Alliance area. By this point, the man's identity couldn't be more obvious. He came from the north, and his status was prestigious. "Mr. Troy, what's the progress for your soldiers?" Bo Yu put his hands in his pocket as he asked the mutated human standing beside him. "The outpost is already established." Troy cracked a smile, exposing his fearsome red gum. "Once the last batch of the armored trucks is completed, my team can head out." "Oh, is that right?" The man in luxurious clothes seemed to be nonchalant to the answer of the mutated human leader as his reply was short. Silence ensued between the two. The mutated human called Troy seemed to be fearful of the power coming out of the man from the Northern Alliance. Even though this place was thousands of kilometers away from the Northern Alliance, even though this place was his home base. "Seeing your own people suffer, do you not have any thoughts in your mind?" Troy cracked a smile as he asked disrespectfully. "We are different from monsters. We don't have to possess those extraneous herd mentality." Bo Yu laughed, not bothered at all. Troy's eyes narrowed. The fact that they have always viewed highly of themselves meant that they were particularly sensitive to the fact that humans categorize them as mutated creatures. Sorry, I have a phone call. Bo Yu shrugged as he walked to the side, then he pressed the phone to his earlobe. Hello? Oh, this is unfortunate then, okay. MHMM, keep monitoring their movements. The name is Jiang Chen, right? Interesting, I am going to hang up. Troy stared gravely at his position. Sorry, buddy, your outpost seems to be gone. Bo Yu ignored the unfriendliness as he casually strolled beside him. Troy's throat moved. He didn't overthink it, but the expression on this man's face made him uncertain. Simultaneous, a mutated human ran from the distance. The frightened look on his face, even from afar in the heavy snow, was clearly visible. Troy's eyebrows twitched as he looked at Bo Yu on the side. The grin on his face triggered him. But he couldn't be angry right now. Leader, our force stationed in Shangxiang town, was eliminated. The mutated human here to report the news hesitated before he immediately lowered his head and continued his report in a tough tone. Yes. Troy took a deep breath while he tried to calm his ready-to-explode emotion. Which force did it? Liuding town. Our people saw their helicopter with binoculars. It was the Type 51 transport helicopter equipped with electromagnetic pulse cannon. Their symbol was below the helicopter. How would Liuding town's people appear here? Troy was shocked. Although he was skeptical towards this information, he couldn't find an argument against it. Since within the entire area, only Liuding town's people possessed air units. If Liuding town intervened, his plan would be much more difficult to execute. He thought about this as Troy's eyebrows began to tense up. He heard of Liuding town's force before. The electromagnetic pulse cannon on the aircraft carriers had a maximum range of 500 kilometers under atmospheric condition. It could be fired from the exit of Long River and directly strike Luzhu. Needless to say, his 7th area was right beside Wangai City. I do have to let you know that it was not Liuding town's people who wiped out your outpost. As if he was very familiar with the force distribution within Wangai City, Bo Yu interrupted. Oh, Troy raised his eyebrows. Liuding town's people would never install electromagnetic pulse cannon on their helicopter because their electromagnetic cannon could strike any target in Wangai City freely. Even if you built defensive structures, under the impact of a 100 kg bomb, how many seconds would you last? Bo Yu smirked. Then you mean? Your information is too outdated. A glorious leader was born in Qingpu. Under his call for unity and the temptation for food, the scattered survivors unified and built a base called Fishbone Base on the ruins. Also, according to my research, they have a trade relationship with the Zhao Corporation on the 6th Street. The exact reason is food-related, Bo Yu said. Food? Troy looked at Bo Yu with not the friendliest look. Based on what I know, on the entire wasteland, the only place that can produce food is the Northern Alliance area. Can I interpret that you sponsored that force? The undeveloped area in the northwestern region was barely scratched during the chaos of the war. Although the soil was barren, fertilizer was a much simpler problem to solve compared to contamination and radiation. If you go further north, you would reach the front line between PAC and CCCP. That place also lies in shambles like Wangai City. Therefore, in the entire Hua area, only northwestern region produced edible crops. Bo Yu sighed at the information. The entire wasteland. By entire, do you mean Wangai City or within the PAC borders or the entire world? Is there a point in discussing world geography? Troy mocked. It's all about the structure we are in. Bo Yu shrugged. Being unable to farm is only because the technology is not on par. Our radiation treatment technology is well designed. If it is not, then even if you were given clean soil, you cannot grow anything in. At the same time, as long as the technology is available, any corner of the wasteland can easily grow delicious fresh fruits and vegetables. Their food probably comes from an established garden underground. But these are not the key points. Only one thing interests me. Project Garden of Eden, Troy burst out laughing. This is quite funny. If that Project Garden of Eden could restore farming, then why do those elites flee into space? because hope afar is far more tempting than dealing with chaos here. Bo Yu smiled as he paused, then he continued, on space colonization, I maintain the same stance as the dissolved World Alliance organization. But those people didn't let the email protected go on the boat. Troy continued to mock. Why would I need a ticket to go on the boat? As long as I have the technology, I can easily build another colonization ship. Bo Yu laughed out loud as he took out his hands from the pockets and pointed to the sky. Give me 20 years and I'll rebuild a high-technology park. Give me 50 years and I'll take the descendants into space again. What should be abandoned is not us, but rather the soil below us. Why don't you learn from us? Evolve then adapt. If you don't try it yourself, you will never know how delicious Deathclaw's meat is. Bo Yu's calm and collected expression flashed a rare glimpse of disgust, but it quickly faded. Therefore, discussing value proposition is something more boring than ideology. You'll get the improved FEV virus and you will take your species to adapt to the wasteland. But remember our deal. Bo Yu controlled the security password of the Carmen Pharmaceutical. It was him that provided the FEV virus information to the mutated humans. Of course, I'll lead my people to help you attack that place. Within the city center, we will find out the location of the Fallout Shelter 5, if it really exists, that is. Don't worry about that anymore. My information has always been reliable. Fallout Shelter 5 is located in Wangai City, Bo Yu said confidently. Troy glanced at Bo Yu before he looked away towards the direction of the slaves. It used to be an empty plot of land, but it was now packed with military supplies. Rifles, machine gun, armors, armored trucks, even cannons and bombs. Within this shipment, some belonged to the mutated humans, but the majority was from the man called Bo Yu. With a common interest, even mutated humans and humans could stand side by side. We must go into the city center. Looks like we will need to start our journey in the winter. Fixated on the snow in the distance, Troy said in an undertone. Chapter 184. Who should I bring home for New Year? Although it was Yao Yao's birthday, Sun Jiao and Lin Lin all rushed to list their requirements for the birthday cake. Chocolate, mango. Those were definitely what they wanted to eat. Instead, the protagonist of the birthday, Yao Yao, feebly expressed that any flavored cake was fine, as long as brother Jiang Chen likes it. Ah, Yao Yao is the cutest. Jiang Chen shouted in his mind. Therefore, Jiang Chen specifically made a trip back to the modern world. You are back. Aisha happened to pass by just in time to see Jiang Chen come out of the door. She tilted her head and asked. Before, he would stay for a long time before making a trip back, but now it seemed to be much more frequent. Last time it was 5 days ago. He came to buy emblems. I came back to buy something. Oh, do you want to head out with me? Jiang Chen suggested out of the blue. He knew nothing about cakes. In his memory, he hasn't celebrated a birthday in a long time. It would be better to have a girl's opinion. IHaveAMansion. She didn't ask what he wanted to buy as she gently nodded. Aisha changed into a Gothic-style skirt, white stockings, and black platform shoes. She held onto Jiang Chen's hand as they left the house. Because she was usually very shy about being intimate in public, her unwillingness to let go and her blushed face was particularly cute. They bought this set of clothes in Kane last time. Jiang Chen opened the garage door as he sat in the front passenger seat. Aisha sat in the driver position. Her driving skill was acquired from the virtual reality training system. As to the driver license, is anything difficult to obtain if money is involved? Where are we going? Shimao Mall. Jiang Chen gave it a thought, but the only place he could think of that was prosperous was the shopping mall in the city center. IHaveAMansion. Aisha softly combed her brown hair to the side of her face. She smiled tenderly while starting the car. Although it was the same Wangai City, in the midst of November, the sun here was much more graceful here with only a hint of chillness mixed in the air. It was fair to expect that in the modern world, Wangai City would have a warm winter. Jiang Chen watched the scenes on the streets fading away in the window. For some reason, he began to feel melancholic. Who would have thought in another dimension, the same place 100 years later, would become a place filled with zombies? But all these things were too distant. Jiang Chen was amazed by the beauty of Aisha as she drove. He couldn't resist and snapped a photo of her. Sensing Jiang Chen's action, Aisha's gorgeous eyes lit up. "Does it look good?" she asked, her eyes still maintained focus on the road. But Jiang Chen felt like all her attention was on his phone. Of course, Jiang Chen smiled. After receiving a positive response, the tips of Aisha's mouth curved up joyfully. But it would be better if it was bigger. Jiang Chen stared at the photo for a while before he suddenly let out a sigh and muttered to himself. Although he toned down his voice, this sentence still didn't escape Aisha's ear. Instantly, the graceful hand clenched tighter onto the steering wheel. Is it my breast? I have been eating papaya and drinking milk, but it still is a process," Aisha said while her eyes looked listless. "No, not that." Seeing the car that just skidded by them, Jiang Chen sweated profusely as he rushed to comfort her. "It's age." Surprised by Jiang Chen's explanation, Aisha asked, confused, but her emotional soothed down while the car returned to the normal track. How should I explain this? We have a holiday or tradition in Hua. All in all, I have to take a girlfriend back by February 8th of next year to see my parents." Embarrassed, Jiang Chen explained. It was hard to imagine that the renowned future technology president did not have a girlfriend to bring home for the new year. Jiang Chen had kept in contact with the family. Since he was rich, he wished for his parents to live a better life. To prevent the two elders from not sleeping well, after deliberate consideration, Jiang Chen decided not to reveal that he became the president of a billion-dollar company. He only said that he made a decent amount of money doing business and planned to explain the whole situation to them when he returned for New Year. At the end of every month, he would send $500,000 to the card that his dad previously used to send his allowance. In the beginning, his dad did not accept it. He stubbornly sent it back until Jiang Chen finally announced that he already bought a house in Wangai City and that he was rich enough to not worry about money anymore. The stubborn father finally reluctantly accepted the money. Every parent wishes their children would live a good life. In their eyes, $500,000 was an astronomical number already. Their entire life saving was only this amount. They were already satisfied that Jiang Chen could support himself in a completely foreign city. They wouldn't spend that much money anyways after they retire, plus they could take their retirement fund to live the rest of their lives without worry. That $500,000 was saved so their son could get a house. The thought of receiving money from their son never even crossed their mind. The one thing they did think of was when they would have grandchildren. Now that the house is there, what about the wife? Under his parents' persistence, Jiang Chen awkwardly indicated he didn't have anyone yet. Since the generation gap was there, he did not dare to tell his parents that. "Your son does not have a wife, but has a mistress." It would be better if Aisha was a bit older. If that was the case, then taking her home for New Year would not only satisfy his parents' thought of having grandchildren, it would also satisfy their vanity. In a small town of Hukin, marrying a foreigner was a glorious act. Nurtured by the nutrient solution, Aisha's skin was as smooth as a porcelain doll. To Jiang Chen, it was a great thing, but the disadvantage was that she looked too young, especially with Aisha's Lolita appearance. No matter which perspective he took, bringing a lowly home was a terrible idea. New Year right. Hearing that her husband did not mind her size, Aisha was relieved. She gently smiled. "If you don't mind, I can be your girlfriend and go home with you." To Jiang Chen's surprise, Aisha knew Han New Year already. But when he gave a thought, it made sense as she already comprehended the language Han, and thus, there was no reason not to know the traditions. Just like when he learned English, he learned of Christmas. Why would I mind? But the problem is not that. Jiang Chen was exasperated. Within Hua, the legal age for marriage is 20. Although it could be worked around with money, my parents are the stubborn type, therefore it is complicated. Aisha tilted her tiny head. She was born in Syria so naturally, she didn't understand the laws here. In her hometown, it was not uncommon for girls 12 or 13 years of age to be married. In her head, she thought she was marrying late. The topic didn't continue. The car quickly arrived at the Shimao building. When they finished parking, Jiang Chen held onto Aisha's hand and walked into the Christine cake store. In his memory, this should be most famous cake store in the area. As to the price, he didn't really care. But just as he pushed open the glass door, Jiang Chen was shocked by what he saw. Chapter 185, The Gloom of War. Welcome, Fang Yuanyuan raised her head, but in the middle of the sentence she froze. Jiang Chen stiffened as he stood before the door. A peculiar expression appeared on his face. He didn't expect to meet this woman coincidentally again. Aisha tilted her head as she stared at Jiang Chen and then the receptionist. She seemed to have understood the situation. She gently pulled Jiang Chen's hand as she whispered, "Should we go to another store?" "There is no need." Jiang Chen smiled as he squeezed her hand. Although he disliked this person, his dislike was not to the point where he would avoid her on purpose. When Jiang Chen walked towards her direction, Fang Yuanyuan lowered her head. "Hello, what would you like?" Her voice was unnatural. Jiang Chen noticed that her fingers were slightly trembling. She must be afraid. "Cake with chocolate and mango, just give me the menu." He let out a sigh as he didn't want to bully her. Instead, he responded with certainty. Jiang Chen took over the menu from her hand, and they began to pick. Seeing the girl beside Jiang Chen, Fang Yuanyuan felt teary for some reason. The door was suddenly pushed open, and a man in plain clothes walked in with a delicate lunchbox. "Yuanyuan, are you hungry?" The man's forehead had a scar, but his smile was bright as he flashed his white teeth. Fang Yuanyuan's cheeks turned red as she nodded, and quietly took over the lunchbox from his hand. Thanks, but I'm still working." "I'll leave you to it then. I have to go back to work too. See you later." Jiang Chen, with the corner of his eye, examined them, intrigued. The man's face had a joyful smile as he energetically stepped out of the room. "This cake should be good." Aisha pointed at a chocolate cake that was decorated with fruits. "This one it is." Jiang Chen refocused on the menu. He gladly accepted her recommendation. These high-class cake stores usually offer delivery services. Jiang Chen took the receipt from Fang Yuanyuan's hand and asked out of curiosity, "Your boyfriend?" Fang Yuanyuan looked away with complications in her eyes. She nodded. "Does he know your past?" Jiang Chen smiled. "No." Fang Yuanyuan bit her lips as she said quietly. "Do you regret it?" Fang Yuanyuan didn't respond. Instead, she looked at him, pleading with her eyes. "Please don't tell him. I know you hate me, but little Kong is a good guy. I don't want him." Jiang Chen raised his hand to interrupt her as he smiled. "First, there is no need to talk about hate. Second, I have no interest in creating problems for other people. I am only curious. Whatever, I already know the answer." Seeing the chef hat on Fang Yuanyuan's head, as well as the simple makeup, the answer was already clear to him. When Jiang Chen left with the girl's hand in his, the look on Fang Yuanyuan's face turned perplexed. She had a fantasy of marrying rich and live the life of a female protagonist like the ones in TV drama. She almost achieved this dream when she was a real estate salesperson. A boss proposed to her, but she chose to wait, thinking that her beauty could do better than him and gain more of a material enjoyment. Without her realizing it, she slowly turned from a Bith to a SLT. In the end, what is the difference between what she did and prostitution? When did she realize this? Perhaps it was that one night when she was thrown out of Hangyi private club like a tool. The mockery sight of 10,000 bills thrown at her woke her up as if cold water was poured onto her head. She felt like she was being shooed away like a homeless person. It was late into the night and she didn't have her phone. She waited for a while at the side of the road but didn't manage to get a taxi. In the end, she could only drag her wry body and disheveled clothes as she numbly walked back to her rented apartment. On her way home, she encountered two drunk perverts who mistook her for a prostitute. They tried to violate her and she desperately fought back. However, the more she struggled, the more it excited them. Just as she was about to lose hope, he appeared. He was not tall, nor did he look that strong, but he still bravely stood in front of her. She was shocked at the fact that there would be a fool in this world who was willing to stand up for her, for a filthy woman. But he couldn't beat the two perverts. He was only able to guard a few moves before the beer bottle exploded on his forehead. Blood began to pour. The brave fool didn't even flinch before he collapsed on the ground. Perhaps awakened by the bloody scene, the two people immediately turned sober. Because they were afraid of accidentally killing someone, they fled the scene. Seeing the man on the ground, as well as the glass shards and blood, Fang Yuanyuan was stunned. Rationality told her the most convenient action was to not say a word and run, pretending nothing happened and leave the fool here. But to her own surprise, she didn't trust the rationality that supported her throughout her life. Without thinking much, she knelt down, picked up a glass shard, ripped off a piece of her $2,000 dress and bandaged up his head. The terrifying blood made her tremble uncontrollably. On the street that was void of life, she shouted, yelled, but the cars passed by all accelerated and left. No one was willing, and no one dared to stop the car to help them. It was already midnight. The rural area was not the safest place. A man whose face was full of blood was lying on the ground. If they stopped and gave them a ride, the man might die in their own car. There might be a lawsuit and then a payout, a settlement. If they were terribly unlucky, they might even have to go to prison. In this apathetic society, the cost of sympathy was too high, especially if there was still work the next day. Luckily, the world still has kind strangers. A pickup truck eventually stopped. The driver of the truck carried the barely breathing man onto the car and rushed them to the nearest hospital. After going into the emergency room for hours, the fool lived. She didn't know why. The her who has always loved money didn't hesitate when she used the reward from Zhou Zihao to pay the medical bill. She also stayed with him until he woke up. His name was Wang Kong. His ordinary name with the white t-shirt that he wore made him look even more dowdy. He only left university this year, a programmer in an IT company. When Fang Yuanyuan asked why he stood up for her, he blushed and looked away. I didn't think too much. When I saw you walking alone outside being bothered by two obviously rude people, I did what I did with a hot head. Did you even consider the possible that you could have died? Wang Kong looked at her blankly as he forced a smile. I probably wouldn't have died. Murder is too big of a crime in today's society. One of her nerves malfunctioned as Fang Yuanyuan asked unreasonably, if you knew you were going to die, would you still have helped me? He kept his silence for a while. Wang Kong scratched the back of his head as he smiled humbly. Yeah, I can't watch a good girl being ruined. That night she wore a white-colored dress. Good girl. When Fang Yuanyuan heard the word, she teared up for some reason. She cried and she regretted. Afterwards, she handed in her resignation at the real estate company and found the work she is now. Then they decided to be together. He didn't have a house, nor did he have a six-figure savings account. That night, Wang Kong proposed to her. She accepted it. As for money, it was no longer important. When he left the cake store, Jiang Chen suddenly started laughing. Aisha turned to look at him, puzzled. Did something good happen? No, I wouldn't say it is good. I just think it is interesting. Jiang Chen put his hand on Aisha's head as he gently rubbed it. Interesting. IHaveAMansion, an old friend of mine, received the finale meant for her. Finale. Aisha, deep in thought, put up her finger against her bottom lip. What would be considered the finale for someone? To Aisha's question, Jiang Chen paused, but then a smile quickly emerged. It's hard to say, but from a bystander's perspective, if there is nothing to expect for the rest of the story, then that should be the finale. Aisha half-understandingly nodded. Apocalypse. On the bank of Taifu River. The feather-like snow blew in the sky. A thin layer of ice covered the river. The bridge across the river was blown apart, and a layer of whiteness covered the bank across the river. On top of the snow, there were a few indistinguishable black dots. What are those mutated humans doing? Hiding inside the snowed hidden fortress, Jiang Lin held the digital binocular as he focused across the river bank with his eyebrows twisted together. Zhao Gang, who stood on the side, was silent, but gloom covered his face. They previously thought that the mutated humans with wiped outposts and lost supplies would be more obedient. They thought that they would have the luxury of waiting until the next spring to plan, but it looks like they want to fight. Based on the information obtained from the drones, there were at least 200 mutated humans stationed across the river bank. Large quantities of construction supplies were transported to the empty land and built into a small supply station. The snow-removing vehicle and slaves somehow managed to clear out a road on the tens of kilometers of highway covered in snow. The armored trucks listed in formations as the daunting anti-air machine guns, and the menacing cannons lined up to create an iron forest. What should we do? Jiang Lin looked at Zhao Gang on the side. Zhao Gang took a deep breath and he said calmly, "Report to the base. If there are 500 more people here, we probably can't defend." The river was the slowest here. Once it entered ice season, the river would be frozen firmly. Even the mutated human with steel armors could easily run on the ice. Once the mutated humans with number advantage start to charge, Fishbone Base could not defend the river with only 5 tigers. Once they captured the river bank, repair the blown-up bridge, their armored force would cross the Teifu River and into Qingpu area. Gazing upon the snowy hill in the distance, Zhao Gang's eyebrows furrowed together. A hard battle was imminent. Chapter 186, The Declaration of War. Inside 6th Street's towering walls. It was the most prosperous place on the wasteland, a city that never slept built among the ruins. In the heart of this bustling place stood a magnificent dome building. Its structure was similar to Houses of Parliament, symbolizing the unity flag fluttering above. It represented power, the brain of the entire 6th Street. Within the council chamber of the building, the council of 10 members gathered around the round table. 6th Street was on doing fairly well for a while now, however. What was surprising was that the dignitaries sitting here had no smile on their faces. As the president of Zhao Corporation, Zhao Chenwu was obviously among them. Sitting across him was his competitor, the boss in the giant firearm company, Feng De. Usually, they would mock each other as part of their routine every time they meet, but this time both of them had gloom all over their face, with both keeping their silence. Sitting on the seat pointing at the door was an old man with rectangular face and white sideburns. He coughed and broke the silent atmosphere at the table. Although the Council of 10 had an equal status, on the wasteland ruled by the powerful, the right to speak was naturally proportional to the strength. Cao Jinsong, the president of Crimson Chamber of Commerce, had a force that was not limited to the 6th Street, and his mercenaries' base stretched as far as Sioux City. He controlled 60% of the genetic vaccine of the pharmaceutical market share in 6th Street, and although he did not take part of the firearm dealings, his private force was the strongest in the 6th Street. Prowler tanks equipped with a particle cannon and outfitted with heavy physical armor and particle shield. The tank possessed attack, defense, and mobility, making it perhaps the strongest land unit in the wasteland. And he had 5 of these tanks. Everyone's time is precious. I suppose we didn't gather here to just stare in the air, isn't that right? Spreading out his hands, Cao Jinsong spoke without preamble. That's true, then shall we start the meeting? Zhao Chenwu crossed his fingers, his elbow resting on the table. I second that. That's right, I still have an engagement after this, so let's get this over with. Quietly waiting for the sound to subside, Cao Jinsong pressed his hand on the conference table and uttered, "Although everyone should have already seen this, I will play it again." Dark blue particles began to levitate in the center of the table, as a holographic image formed in the middle which converged into a half-body portrait. Hello everyone from Wangai City. The man clad in military uniforms seemed arrogant. After seeing this image, our people would already be on their way. We all agreed that you're sitting on the treasures from your predecessors, but you don't think of improving yourself. You sit on a huge amount of treasures, but you settle for status quo and enjoy a lavish life. We can't wait any longer. I think we need to have a good chat. Of course, this doesn't mean I'm here to negotiate with you. That's right, this is a declaration of war. Northern Alliance District General Wang Beihai, signing off. The image disappeared. There was a frightening silence around the table. Zhao Chenwu took a deep breath, stretched his hand to gently fix his collar, and looked anxiously at his colleagues around him. Anger, alarm, disdain, and timidness. Sitting across him was his nemesis, Feng De, who used a tissue to wipe the sweat off his forehead while anxiously adjusting his sitting position. But Cao Jinsong's look was rather calm, as there was not much of a change in his expression. They're crazy. They are just a bunch of lunatics. These, Northern Alliance District. If I remember correctly, that place is 1,500 kilometers away from here. Do they think they can fly all the way here? Or are they saying they could slaughter their way through half of Hua's zombies? A tall middle-aged man roared with disdain. Furthermore, it's a winter expedition to procure winter supplies for a 1,500-kilometer trek. Don't those people need to eat? They sure are that confident to win, eh? Do they really think no one is here in 6th Street? Cao Jinsong silently looked at the council members around the table as his index finger rhythmically tapped on the table. Winder expedition, why must it be in winter? In our eyes, it is indeed a foolish move, but why do they insist on doing this? Taking a deep breath, Zhao Chenwu stated. Cao Jinsong gave him a startled look and nodded his head slightly. Upon hearing someone pointed out this question, the previously volatile council members began to calm down. They got confused by the arrogance of that general, however. Now that they had given it some thought, something was definitely amiss. According to the information my people had gathered in Luzhu, the Northern Alliance District indeed appeared there. They are currently building an outpost in Luzhu rural area with a large number of people. Cao Jinsong drawled. Luzhu, could it be? The council member's expression sitting next to Cao Jinsong suddenly shifted. That's right, they used the underground highway. Cao Jinsong nodded. That thing was already broken. How could they use that? Someone asked derisively. Highway, railway, magnetic levitation, and other transportation infrastructures were all targeted during the war. The underground highway was no exception. NATO's satellite weapons deployed 57 pressure bombs that blasted the underground highway into several sections, which was used by PAC to transport military supplies during the war. Be that as it may, the underground passage between the northwestern area to Luzhu has been repaired, so this might be the only explanation as to how their people could appear here. After hearing Cao Jinsong's words, everyone became silent once again. Seeing no one was talking, Cao Jinsong paused and continued. Since this is a declaration of war, then war has become a foregone conclusion. For their arrogance and foolishness, we will naturally respond with guns. This is without a doubt. But there are still a lot of confusing things here, aren't you a little bit curious? What prompted them to make a reckless decision to declare war during winter from 1,500 kilometers away? He mentioned about the treasure, but the question is, what treasures is he talking about? We've been living here for so many years, and we haven't found anything yet. How could there be goddamn treasures here? A man with a beer belly couldn't help but swear. Winter expedition to avoid mutants, and since they're using the underground passage, they naturally don't need to concern themselves with the mutants along the way. Then there is only one possibility. Their destination could only be reached in the winter, Zhao Chenwu said with a firm tone. Cao Jinsong nodded with approval and looked at all the council members present. I share the same thought as Council Member Zhao. If there is any place we have yet to set our foot on, it should be none other than the downtown. Chapter 187, Sword of Damocles. Before the war, Wangai City was a major metropolitan in the world. It possessed the biggest technology park within PAC as well as countless research facilities. Because of this, After the war erupted, Wangai City immediately became the focal point between PAC and NATO in the East Coast battle. It was the obvious destination for nuclear and biological weapon attacks. Damage was especially brutal within the city center, where it was blown into a scorched piece of land, where only extreme mutants or already dead zombies could survive. On this piece of wasteland, the city center became the synonym for danger. Even the strongest hunting teams had not stepped into this forbidden territory. The countless number of zombies, the nest of zombie eaters, the unimaginably powerful mutants, the risk and reward trade-off of exploring the zombies-dominated area was not justified by any means. As to when the city center would be relatively safer, it was during winter. In the winter, most of the mutants would go into hibernation. Thus, the only trouble that remained was the zombie. But despite this, city center, other than nuclear craters and scrap metals, what else is there? A council member with a square frame glasses scorned at the thought. Perhaps there is a lethal weapon left by the preceding government, or perhaps a USB containing mysterious codes. Regardless what there is, our neighbor is clearly interested. We have enough evidence to believe that they have strong reasons for putting their nose up our business from thousands of miles away. Cao Jinsong smiled. If they just want to go into the city center, why don't they negotiate with us? Zhao Chenwu frowned as he said in an undertone, "We don't have to fight, we could work together. For example, providing supplies for their army for a commission amount." What do you think the Northern Alliance District is? A hunting team stationed at our place, provides supplies. They could just raid us. They are not merchants, they are bandits under a military government. A council member mocked. Disregarding whether if they could beat us or not. Even if they win, would they have enough force left to enter the city center? I agree with Council Member Zhao's perspective. Their action is unusual. Perhaps there is some hidden truth we don't know about. A sophisticated-looking council member added. It's because of arrogance, Feng De sneered. But arrogance has nothing to do with intelligence. They choose to start a war knowing cooperation would be the best choice, unless that treasure is tempting enough. Cao Jinsong opened his mouth. The fingers that were crossed together in front of his face covered his nose. They believe the value of the treasure, and believe that if we know about the treasure, we would fight for it with all our forces. Even the reputation we built for over 10 years cannot guarantee our honesty. Then what is that treasure? Someone asked. I personally lean towards the possibility of it being a weapon. A mysterious smile flashed across Cao Jinsong's face. He then lowered his voice. If there is a super weapon that could instantly suppress a base or even a city. That's impossible. If a weapon like that really existed, then it must have been a top priority during the war. Someone rebutted. I agree. Also, how do they know that the city center of Wangai City really possessed such thing? As to other council members' rebuttal, Cao Jinsong didn't mind as he smiled with collectedness. He took a momentary pause before he continued. We are all unfortunate people who didn't manage to get into the fallout shelter. I know that you all are no strangers to that war. I am talking about the sky-based weapon that destroyed the Holy Shield, the God's Cane. When they heard the name God's Cane, everyone held their breath. That was a long time ago, but even today, after 10-something years, they could not forget what happened that day. The dome that covered the sky evaporated under the blue particles, followed by airdrop soldiers that fell like rain. Zhao Chenwu looked at Cao Jinsong in disbelief as he spoke disheartenedly. Didn't that thing get blasted into pieces? I remember the PAC Special Force captured it and NATO initiated self-destruction. Based on my supercomputer's data modeling analysis, Cao Jinsong took a graphite chip from his pocket and waved it in between his fingers before he put it on the table. The hologram image displayed again. The web-like structure simulated the Earth, as well as the sky-based weapon hovering on top God's Cane. 259 kilograms of TNT self-destruction. The weapon parts would fall in the middle of Wangai City. The web-weaved God's Cane turned red as it drew a trajectory and pointed at the location on Earth in Wangai City. If they acquired the parts of God's Cane, repaired it, and fired it into space again, it will become the sword of Damocles, one that hangs above all of us. It will become our eternal nightmare. Followed by his last words, the hologram image disappeared, and the atmosphere around the conference table turned cold. Everyone's expression took a turn. Other than fear and anger, it also carried a hint of greed. What do they want to do? Zhao Qianwu squeezed those words out. Conquer or enslave? Cao Jinsong's finger gently tapped on the table. They want to continue their dictatorship outside of the northwestern area. Other than this, I can't think of any other reasons. Resistance is necessary. The freedom spirit will not bend for dictators, that is without a doubt. There are only two choices in front of us. First, before they come to Wangai City, explore the city center by ourselves. If there really is a super weapon, we can use it against them. Second, protect our treasure and fight our invaders until the last drop of blood. Then, by tradition, let's vote. Cao Jinsong smiled mischievously as he pressed the vote button. Yes. The final vote resulted in an absolute landslide victory of 2-8 to the second option, fight against the invaders. Even during winter, it was risky to explore the city center. They might end up paying a price for this if they do not find the weapon, or if the treasure was not a weapon to begin with. Even if it was a weapon, it could not be used in a short period of time because of the need for repair. This would indubitably increase the variables in the war. Most of the people chose the safer option, to first eliminate the external threat before exploring the treasure within the ruins. After the meeting, the council members began to depart. When Zhao Qianwu walked out of the chamber, Zhao Qianwu's eyebrows furrowed. Su Lei, who was waiting at the door, saw her boss leave. She immediately greeted him. "Is there any problem?" As the right and left hands of the boss, Su Lei asked. "No problem, I just think something is not right," Zhao Qianwu said in an undertone. "About our business?" "No, hopefully it is just my illusion." Seeing his colleagues leave in brisk steps, for some reason, uneasiness began to sprout in his mind. 1. The famed Sword of Damocles dates back to an ancient moral parable popularized by the Roman philosopher Cicero in his 45 BC book, Tusculan Disputations. Cicero's version of the tale centers on Dionysius II, a tyrannical king who once ruled over the Sicilian city of Syracuse during the 4th and 5th centuries BC. Though rich and powerful, Dionysius was supremely unhappy. His iron-fisted rule had made him many enemies, and he was tormented by fears of assassination, so much so that he slept in a bedchamber surrounded by a moat and only trusted his daughters to shave his beard with a razor. Courtesy, History Com. Chapter 188. A victory belonged to the small animal. Happy birthday to you, Tilda. The melody of the birthday song harmonized perfectly with the clapping hands, as the song echoed throughout the old mansion. It was already night, and there was no light on. The room was dark. Only 16 candles illuminated and lit up the blushed face. Bang! Colorful confetti exploded alongst 3 genuine wishes. Happy birthday! Thank you. Yao Yao's eyes were decorated with mists of excitement. Her tiny hands clenched onto the tip of her dress, and she bowed deeply to express her appreciation. It has been many years since she was this happy. But before she could finish, an unharmonious voice interrupted the touching atmosphere. "Oh my, cake!" Mango gulp. Lin Lin chuckled moonly at the cake as her fists clenched on the fork. "You are drooling, fool." Sun Jiao grabbed her by the collar as she lifted back Lin Lin, who was approaching the cake. At the same time, she gave her a scorned look. "Woo!" Lin Lin retracted her neck as she pouted her mouth, feeling wronged. "Didn't we agree on eating the cake after singing the birthday song? We still have to blow out the candle. Wait a bit longer." Jiang Chen's mood was particularly delightfully today as he gave a rare tender smile to Lin Lin. "If it is only a bit longer." Lin Lin looked away with her face blushed. Under the dim light, no one noticed the red hue on her face. "Go ahead, Yao Yao, you are the star today." Sun Jiao extended her hand with a smile as she put it around Yao Yao's shoulder. "Remember to make a wish," Jiang Chen said. MHMM. The pretty face was red because of excitement. Yao Yao's tiny head nodded fiercely. She approached the candles with excitement as she took a deep breath. Whoosh! 16 candle flames flared by her breath. Each candle was filled with a young girl's wish. From now on, Yao Yao has officially entered her sweet 60th. The light turned back on. With a pure white princess dress, soft hair that dangled to her chest, add white stocking paired with black chauffeurs, she looked like a girl who just walked out of a fairy tale. Cut the cake. I want the cake. Lin Lin couldn't wait any longer. Her silver hair swayed, but her one red and one black pupil stared at the pieces of mangoes on the cake as she continued to gulp. Sun Jiao lifted the plastic knife as she started to portion the cake. Is it okay to cut the letters, or should I avoid the letters? Born in a fallout shelter, it was her first time seeing a cake. She only remembered that she ate something called chocolate before. Just a small piece was sweet enough to melt her, but now the chocolate was made into a cake the size of a plate. The white vanilla cream and the colorful fruits were just like a piece of art. She didn't want to cut it. Ah, don't hesitate anymore, my mango. Lin Lin reached her hand out desperately as she tried to fight for the plastic knife in Sun Jiao's hand. Rowdy, Sun Jiao obviously would not let Lin Lin succeed, so she easily took care of her. Yao Yao, on the other hand, was quieter. Her face blushed as she closely leaned on Jiang Chen. Her cherry-like mouth panted as her chest raised up and down. She looked nervous. As to why she was nervous, that was because of tonight. Are you happy today? Jiang Chen gently squeezed Yao Yao's hand as he smiled. Seeing the warm smile on his face, Yao Yao shyly stared at the chocolate vanilla cake in front of her, and she grinned softly. I am happy. Speaking of this, I thought it was your 17th birthday today. Do we really need 37 candles? Jiang Chen suddenly added a smirk to his face. The cute mouth immediately pouted. Wu, don't be mean to me today, Yao Yao said softly as she gently dragged the tip of his shirt. Haha, sorry, I can't resist because you are too cute. He caressed Yao Yao's long hair. Seeing the slightly narrowed and loving eyes and the lightly shaking eyelashes, a joyful smile appeared on Jiang Chen's face. The feeling of home was probably similar to this. Speaking of this, what did you wish for? Hearing this, Yao Yao's face turned red as her eyes quickly glanced at him before moving away. It would not be a wish if I say it out loud, it's a secret, she said quietly. She certainly minded. Just as Jiang Chen was about to tease the small lowly Moor, a light door knock transmitted from the living room. Sun Jiao looked at Jiang Chen to ask for his opinion. Jiang Chen shrugged before he walked to the living room and opened the door. Wang Qin stood outside. Her nose turned vibrant red because of the chillness. Her freckled face had some ice shards on it. The night on the wasteland was frigid, particularly in the winter. Seeing how her frozen face was written with worry, Jiang Chen turned serious. Come in first. Nag Chin nodded sincerely. She ducked under the door and shook the snow off her body. Do you need a cup of hot water? Seeing how cold she was, Jiang Chen asked caringly. But she waved her head signaling a no, and she took a deep breath of the warm air before she looked at Jiang Chen. The mutated humans, they are coming from the 7th area and they are setting up camps across from Teifu River. It is rumored that, Achu. As she spoke, she suddenly sneezed. Seeing her disjointed look, Jiang Chen sighed as he headed into the kitchen and poured a cup of hot water for her. Thank you. Wang Qin sat on the sofa and held onto the steamy cup. Signs of blood flow finally began to show on her face. Sit down and say it slowly. There is no need to rush. Don't forget any details. Jiang Chen sat across from Wang Qin and said in a stern tone. She nodded before she took a deep breath and collected her thoughts. This afternoon, Zhao Gang sent information from Shangxiang town. Wang Qin described in detail the movements of mutated humans to Jiang Chen, including the force distribution, the number of equipment detected by the drones, as well as the request for backup from Zhao Gang. Hearing her description, Jiang Chen pondered for a moment. What's the production status of Tiger? We only produced 2 new units as of now, and the workers are already working around the clock, Wang Qin said, troubled. What about the drones? 47 units. I see. His finger on his chin, Jiang Chen fell into deep thought. Mutated humans were planning to fight until death. They chose to invade during winter even with their outposts taken out. The motive certainly surprised him. Although the Carmen Pharmaceutical Corporation was near the city center, it was not within the vicinity of the city center. From any point of view, it would be a wiser choice to head to the Carmen building when spring came around rather than fighting through the river during the winter. Was there any reason they must fight in the winter? Unless their target was not only the Carmen building, but the city center as well. Tell Zhao Gang that the backup will arrive immediately. Wang Qin nodded, but a troubled look flashed across her face. New recruit training is still underway. There are only 70 soldiers available to fight in the base, if we send too many people. She didn't complete the sentence, but the meaning was obvious. If the defense of the base is weak, they might not be able to control the slaves. I'll take care of the problem, just reply this way, Jiang Chen smiled. Perhaps because his smile was confident, Wang Qin's concern immediately vanquished. She nodded with a smile before she left. Seeing Wang Qin leave, Jiang Chen pondered for a long moment and closed the door. He readjusted his mood before he went back to the dining room. Did something happen? Sun Jiao seemed to have sensed something. Nothing, Jiang Chen smiled, signaling her not to worry. But this time, he saw Lin Lin twitching on the chair with vanilla smeared all over her face. His expression changed. The naughty Sun Jiao seemed to have noticed Jiang Chen's stare as her face turned red. She looked at the ceiling, raised her proud chest, and pretended that nothing happened. Don't bully Lin Lin that much. Sun Jiao stuck out her tongue and suddenly grabbed him by the arm. She giggled and inched closer to his ear. I am full, let's go play games. I haven't even eaten yet, Jiang Chen facepalmed in his mind. But the tenderness he felt from his arm made his mind drift elsewhere. No, not acceptable. Yao Yao, with her ears on high alert, immediately jumped on like a squirrel whose tail just got stepped on. She ran over and dragged onto the other hand of Jiang Chen and looked at Sun Jiao in remorse. We already agreed that the star today is me. We already agreed. Jiang Chen paused as he looked confusedly between Sun Jiao and Yao Yao. I changed my mind, I'll give him to you tomorrow. Sun Jiao didn't answer Jiang Chen's question. Instead, she looked away awkwardly. Wu, Yao Yao bloated her cheeks as the adorable eyebrows immediately raised up, but they soon softened down. You already ate all the good food. You can't even let the small animal drink some soup. The saddened voice made Sun Jiao's face look somewhat embarrassed. She didn't say anything. Seeing Sister Sun Jiao had no reaction, Yao Yao didn't give up. She lightly gritted her teeth to give herself the courage as she continued to use the soft voice to persuade her. If you eat meat every day, you will become sick of it. Sun Jiao's expression was evidently moved. Jiang Chen still looked at the two of them in bewilderment, not understanding why the conversation topic suddenly turned to food. Seeing the words were effective, Yao Yao secretively posed a success gesture with her hands as she built on her success. The occasional vegetable would be good for your health. Also, if the small animal doesn't taste good, wouldn't it demonstrate the attractiveness of the big dairy cow? Sun Jiao with a blushed face said, What's big dairy cow? What are you guys talking about? Jiang Chen scratched his face in confusion. Her conflicted eyes moved between Yao Yao and Jiang Chen as her stance wavered. Although she already decided, Wu, this is annoying. But if you eat meat every day, you will become sick of it. I don't care anymore, do whatever you want, Sun Jiao said in defeat as she escaped without looking back. Jiang Chen stared at the fleeting Sun Jiao blankly before he looked at Yao Yao, who had a red hue on her face. A troubled smile appeared on his face. What just happened? Nothing. Yao Yao's head shook furiously as she put her hands behind her back timidly. She smiled tenderly as she posted a success gesture with her hand behind her back. The victory belonged to the small animal. Chapter 189. The Duet of the Assassination at Night. After the shower, Jiang Chen raised his hand to knock on Sun Jiao's door, but there was no reaction in the room. What's the matter with this girl today? With a head full of question marks, Jiang Chen returned to his own room. Although he could go back and sleep in the modern world, he felt that it would weaken his spirit. What's more, there's not much of a difference whether he slept here or on the other side. The only difference was the person he's sleeping with. He turned off the light and laid in bed. Jiang Chen closed his eyes and began to think about the mutated humans. There was a scarcity of soldiers in the base, and the mutated humans didn't play by the book. As for how to resolve the problem, he already had a plan formulating in his mind. It was just the specifics that required more thinking. While his mind drifted off, he began to succumb to drowsiness. But just as he was about to doze off, there was a gentle knock on the door. The corner of his mouth had a touch of smile, as he pretended to not hear anything and closed his eyes and pretended to be asleep. This girl is actually sneaking in at night. We'll see how I'll teach you a lesson. The door was slightly pushed open, and a faint light pervaded in the room before it quickly faded away. The steps were light as it carried a faint scent of jasmine, disturbing Jiang Chen's heart. The quilt was pulled out of the corner, and someone slipped under the sheets. Jiang Chen was smirking and pretending to be oblivious while turning his body before putting his arm around the dainty figure. "Wait, dainty." Wu, the feeble murmuring had increased. This didn't seem to be Sun Jiao. "Yao Yao," Jiang Chen asked awkwardly. "IHaveAMansion," Yao Yao quietly replied. Her wet hair exuded a sweet scent of jasmine, her gossamer of nightgown covered her delicate figure, and the moonlight from the window suffused her flushed face. Her huge, adorable eyes were trembling with apprehension, but there was no sign of retreating. A silent atmosphere lingered between the two. Jiang Chen shifted slightly, wanting to subtly move his hand away, only to realize that Yao Yao was clutching on his cuff. Yao Yao murmured, "I like you." "IHaveAMansion." He opened his mouth to speak, and despite wanting to say a lot of things, he only managed to utter a single word. Seeing Jiang Chen didn't react, Yao Yao gently lowered her eyelids, but soon quickly plucked up her courage and lifted her head. "Could you accompany me for a while to share some secrets?" "Secrets?" "Yes, precisely because we're under the sheets that we can tell each other secrets," Yao Yao whispered and nodded her head earnestly. "You can talk to me about anything," Jiang Chen smiled at her. Instead of removing his hand from her shoulder, he gently smoothed her hair. Yao Yao guilelessly enjoyed the caress by his big hand, as she comfortably closed her adorable, huge eyes and snuggled closer to him. Due to the close proximity to her delicate body, Jiang Chen's face was suffused with heat. "Let's start first. What kind of girl does Big Brother like?" Staring into the crystal-clear eyes, Jiang Chen held his breath, forgetting to answer the question. Sensing the mood, a crimson hue crept on Yao Yao's face. Yao Yao closed her eyes gently. Her eyelashes gently fluttered, drawing her slightly open small mouth nearer to her beloved Big Brother's lips. Staring at the approaching face, Jiang Chen's Adam's apple bobbed in his throat. Reasons told him that if he didn't stop her in this situation, something bad might happen. "Stop, why stop?" Temporarily forgetting to think, Jiang Chen leaned closer to Yao Yao's lovely face. A long time ago, he made a decision to follow his thoughts from the bottom of his heart and to stay true to his emotions. Suddenly, a wisp of cold breeze blew past at the back of his neck. "Cold air. Who is it?" Jiang Chen was instantly alerted and immediately got up to look at the window. The window was already open. A shadow was hanging upside down in the window. The long hair swayed in the air. The crystal sandwiched between her two fingers reflected an ominous glint under the moonlight. The corners of her mouth were eerily curved. "What?" Yawn. While walking aimlessly around the base, Sun Jiao yawned. Behind her back was an SK-10 laser rifle. The snow was not as heavy as before, and the combat suit fended off the cold air, so it wasn't too chilly. White mist started to come out of her thick hat as she deliberately looked in the direction of the mansion. It was already the 37th time that she had done it. Thinking of that big, bad guy, he was definitely embracing the adorable Yao Yao at this time was, and putting that thing that mustn't be described in. Sun Jiao's face immediately turned red as she stomped her feet in anger. Stupid lowly lover, Sun Jiao cursed out as she shook her head and continued to wander to other places. At that time, she suddenly saw two people. A man and woman were holding hands while walking on the path leading to front of community center. Despite the distance, Sun Jiao still recognized the identity of the woman. Thus, a complicated expression appeared on her face. Josiaxia, her former friend. But she probably couldn't recognize her anymore. Thinking of this, Sun Jiao let out a sigh. She had been living in bliss for quite some time, to the point of almost forgetting the cruelty of the wasteland. I hope you can be happy, my friend. She looked at the two persons from afar, but she didn't get closer. Instead, she turned around and walked to a different direction. Well, I am so mad at that she-devil. Lin Lin used a towel to dry her silky silver hair while muttering furiously before leaving the bathroom. Water droplets dripped on the floor as she dragged her feet slowly inside the cotton slippers. The cream smeared on her face and hair had been finally rinsed off. She made a relaxing stretch, preparing for a well-deserved sleep tonight. Then bear her, I will help you. Ting Ting seemed to have completely mastered the human language. It's okay. In my opinion, you shouldn't be this violent since this is my body after all, Lin Lin muttered softly. Are you not annoyed by her? Hearing this question, Lin Lin pouted and buried her head under the towel. To be honest, not really. Is this the Stockholm Syndrome we're talking about? Ting Ting queried curiously. How is that possible? Lin Lin exclaimed, infuriated. She punched herself on her left chest, but there was obviously no reaction from Ting Ting. Rather, it was Lin Lin who got hurt herself. Then what is it? Lin Lin's pale face was beet red as she rubbed her chest, looking away. Perhaps it is because we are friends. It was her first time having this feeling. She had never experienced the feeling of having friends while she was locked inside the digital cage. Although Sun Jiao would occasionally bully her, she had never disliked her. And that included Jiang Chen. No, that person was different. The more Lin Lin thought about it, the redder her pretty face became. The man that rescued her from the virtual world was surprisingly gentle. Boom! There was a sudden loud noise coming from upstairs, which interrupted Lin Lin's bewildered musings. What are they doing? Lin Lin blankly stared at the shaking ceiling as red light began to form in her right eye and migrated to her left eye. Wait, what are you doing? Lin Lin gradually lost control of her body as she screamed at the guest residing in her body. Chapter 190, The Otherworldly Crimson Pupils. Boom! Crystal explosion. The bed there had been broken into two pieces. With no time to think, Jiang Chen instinctively shielded Yao Yao from being hit. One of his hands surrounded tightly around Yao Yao's quivering shoulder while he leaned against the half-destroyed bedboard. His other hand took out the PK-2000 from the storage dimension. Ta-da-ta-ta. With gritted teeth, Jiang Chen held onto the rifle with his finger on the trigger. Yao Yao covered her ears with her hands as her body shook in his arms. The bullets shattered the window into pieces, but they only managed to break a few strands of the person's hair. The figure agilely dodged all the bullets and dashed into the room. Bullets chased the quick shadow and left bowl-sized holes in the wall. The figure didn't seem to be anxious because of the constant firing. Instead, it dashed to the other corner of the room and dragged down the closet along with the wall. Ka! The bullets ran out. Jiang Chen flung the rifle to the ground as he pulled out his pistol. One hand appeared from the shadow, and something was thrown out. Jiang Chen's pupils contracted. With the help of the moonlight, he saw a crystal emitting a dark green sheen. There was no time to dodge. He glanced at Yao Yao with the corner of his eyes. Jiang Chen bit the bullet and decided not to start interdimensional traveling. Rather, he reached for the crystal with his hand. The green sheen lit up the entire room as the scorching temperature almost melted off his skin. Energy withdrawal. The unstable energy quickly stabilized as the dark green crystal's energy instantly entered the void and turned into a transparent, colorless glass. The opponent was surprised. Just as Jiang Chen didn't understand how she could use the crystal as a grenade, she was also confused as to how Jiang Chen could make the crystal energy disappear. But being surprised was one thing. The movement of the figure did not stop the slightest as her hand raised up again. Jiang Chen's face turned green instantly. It was not one crystal this time. The dark green crystals appeared in the air like raindrops. Even if he had 10 hands, he could not be able to grab all the crystals. The crystals scattered everywhere in the room. In such an enclosed space, there was nowhere to dodge. If he wanted to avoid them, he must use interdimensional travel. But Yao. Instantly, thousands of ideas flashed through Jiang Chen's mind, but none of them contained the thought of abandoning her. Finally, he gritted his teeth, pushed Yao on the ground as he prepared to take the explosion. Yao's eyes widened as she looked at her big brother's action in disbelief with her lips quivering. She used her tender hands to forcefully push him. She knew that if Big Brother was here by himself, he definitely could avoid the explosion. But Jiang Chen's didn't let go, nor did he activate interdimensional travel. He only gritted his teeth. Although it is quite touching, please go die. A female voice full of mockery came from behind the closet. The crystals with sheen began to fall, and the dark green energy violently swarmed the room. It could explode any moment. Beam! All of a sudden, a blood-red beam penetrated through the door and scattered the darkness of the room. It passed the broken window and into the distance. Under the interference of the blood-red particle beam, all the crystals began to gather around the beam like metal dust encountering a magnet. Then all the energy was instantly removed as the crystals shattered into clouds of dust. It was Lin standing at the door. But the blood-red pupils emitted an unsettling strangeness. "This is impossible." Shouting appeared from behind the fallen closet. "Nothing is impossible." Although surprised by the ability displayed by Lin, right now was obviously not the best time to ask the question. Jiang Chen let Yao go, and he quickly leaped toward the side to pick up the rifle. The person hiding behind the cupboard didn't pause. Seeing that the assassination had already failed, she immediately pulled the smoke grenade. "You must be in your dreams if you think you can escape." The nitrogen shield was instantly activated as the turbid airflow scattered the thick smoke. Jiang Chen carried the rifle to the fallen closet, but he realized that the person was already gone. The window. What happened? The crimson light vanished from Lin's eyes as she looked bewilderedly at the room in shambles. Lin, look after Yao. Jiang Chen suppressed the anger in his chest as he took a deep breath. But... Jiang Chen quickly took out the kinetic skeleton and put it on, and then with one hand pressed to the window, he jumped straight down. Both of his feet stomped on the ground with full force as the shock absorber on his legs erased most of the impact. Although the assassin avoided the patrol of the drones, when she left, she still triggered the alarm. The alarm began to ring inside the base as the drone fleet quickly chased after the infiltrated target. Jiang Chen opened his EP as the escaping target had already been locked by the drones. Jiang Chen quickly moved toward the target. Even with snow up to his knees, with the assistance of kinetic skeleton, he still didn't feel much resistance as he inched closer and closer to the red dot. There was a wire tied on the top of the wall. She must have used this rapport to sneak into the base. With his knees bent, Jiang Chen pushed his feet against the ground as he leaped up and grabbed the edge of the wall with one hand. Jiang Chen somehow managed to jump over the 5 meters high wall of the base. The snow-covered street was filled with zombies. When they heard the noise, the blank eyes looked in this direction as their lifeless pupils began to turn red. Rower. With a roar, they dragged their stiff body as the zombies began to surround Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen didn't back down. Instead, he leaped forward. Under the fully mobilized kinetic skeleton, he smashed toward the zombies like a steam train. The gun barrel smashed through the broken head before the agitated zombies managed to surround him. Jiang Chen quickly dashed through the waves of zombies as he sprang toward an abandoned building outside of the wall. With both feet on the ground, he vaulted up. Hands on the edge of the building, Jiang Chen climbed to the roof, leaving the zombies at the bottom. Without slowing down, he chased after the direction of the assassin. As he jumped between roofs, he was closer and closer to the pitch-black figures. The drones had already surrounded her. The flashing flame in the distance was a signal of the drones firing. "You can't run, surrender now." Jiang Chen pulled the trigger as he shouted. The two exchanging gunshots attracted the zombies on the entire street, but without the ability to climb up to buildings. They could only blindly follow the source of the sound. Warning, drones reaching signal limit. They had exceeded the attack radius of the hummingbird drone. Damn it, what a rat! Jiang Chen furiously stared at the figure dodging while he leaped at the front building. Suddenly, that person stopped, turned around, and a mysterious smile appeared. Jiang Chen was highly alerted by this, but his body was already in motion and he could not react anymore. Bye-bye. Under the pristine moonlight, he saw the slim-figured woman blowing him a kiss. Fucking. Before his feet touched the roof, flame emerged from the bottom of the building, and the roof collapsed under the sound of the explosion. It was explosives. Heavy smokes filled the vicinity as the debris quickly surrounded him. The woman looked at Jiang Chen from a distance. Mockery was all over her face as her silky black hair blew in the northern wind. The black combat suit looked thin, but she did not look chilly at all. "I thought he was an interesting person, but looks like he is just so-so after all." She played with the crystal in her hand and threw to the street on the side. A green sheen flashed as the crystal exploded. The zombies surrounding the shambles were attracted by a new sound source as they confusedly moved to that direction. With the cost of 127 crystals, this ability for sure burns through money. Mission ended. The black figure started to mutter to herself as she jumped in front of the shambles. Not everyone was rich like Jiang Chen. 100 crystals were an astronomical number for most people. She flung her wrist as the aerodynamic-looking laser rifle appeared on her graceful hand. "Is he buried inside now? This is bothersome." She let out a sigh. The battery buzzed as the laser pistol in her hand was already loaded. With a kinetic skeleton, he might not have died. Without confirming the body, this mission could not be considered complete. As the leader of the force, you chased all by yourself so far out. Should I call you courageous or foolish? She pressed on her EP as she activated the life detection device. The signal wave scanned through the map as she tilted her head. No signal. Died, or did he carry a blocking device? She kicked away a piece of rock as her gun pointed at the shadows among the ruins. She carefully stepped on top of the shambles. It began to snow again. The northern gust covered the already dim moonlight. But all of a sudden, the yet-to-shut-down life detection device on her right hand suddenly showed a red dot flashing on the map. She saw this with the corner of her eyes, and she suddenly felt a chillness down to her bones. She jotted up her head as a black figure, growing bigger and bigger, reflected in her contracting pupils. Boom! With an abrupt jump backward, she barely dodged the thunderous blow. Rocks scattered like bullets has hit the surrounding. The arm she used for blocking stung. The suppressive airflow once again blew away the settled dust, as well as the snow. One person, one hammer. The eyes were filled with rage. If she got any closer, she would have seen the red dot on the pupils. Fury. This is impossible. How did you? Her eyes were written with disbelief. She obviously didn't know of Jiang Chen's ability to travel through dimensions. Without a reply, Jiang Chen continued to move. The micro-engines in his knees kicked into overdrive. Like a cannon, he dragged the long hammer and dashed at her. She had yet to regain her footing as she could not jump back. Under the crucial situation, the female assassin clenched her teeth and activated the particle shield on her right arm. The faint blue particles dispersed around to form a circular shield with a radius of 1 meter around her. Jiang Chen sneers as the narrowed pupils locked onto her eyes. The power hammer obtained from the mutated human swung up, with 4 trails of blue light streams at the end of the hammer. It swung toward the shield in front of her arm like a meteor striking Earth. Chapter 191: The Dark and Windy Night. The particle shield made out of faint blue particles shattered. The power compressed together was instantly released as the female assassin was blown away like a bomb, colliding against a concrete wall 10 meters away. The sound of fighting drowned the zombies nearby. The frost didn't numb their legs. Compelled by the lust for flesh, they ran toward the two of them. Under both the kinetic skeleton as well as Fury's strength, the power hammer in which the lead mutated human couldn't even lift was put on Jiang Chen's shield, and it was instantly charged again. Without a skip and a beat, like an enraged monster, he swung the hammer. A few dark green crystals flew towards him. Jiang Chen didn't avoid it. Instead, the nitrogen armor on his right arm blew the green dots away for meters. This lunatic, the person frantically lifted her pistol and pressed the trigger. The instant explosive force of laser weapon was perfectly demonstrated in the short distance. The raindrop-like blue beams exploded instantly, outshining the thick snow. Nitrogen armor could not defend against laser bullets. Jiang Chen put up the hammer to shield his head, while the plastic armor layered with scattering effect deflected the 10 low-power laser bullets. Although the attack didn't manage to cause any hindrance to Jiang Chen's movement, it still forced him to lose his vision on her for a brief second. With this opportunity, the female assassin quickly jumped towards the side and avoided the thunderous blow. Boom! The concrete wall was smashed into dust as debris flew. Roar! The deep roaring sound filled the air. The disturbed zombies crowded them as they leapt toward them, baring their teeth and claws. The female assassin sensed the dire situation as she swung her left hand with a metal hook. It shot straight to the top of an apartment building. Seeing this, Jiang Chen immediately gave up on the hammer as he pulled out the PK-2000 behind his back. He fired following her figure and noise. The snow made shooting challenging. However, due to fury and the desire for blood, the bullets managed to chase up to her as if they had eyes. There were whimpering sounds in the distance. He could sense that he managed to land at least 3 shots on her. He swung his gun to smash down a zombie who was leaping towards him. Calmly, Jiang Chen climbed onto the top of the half-destroyed concrete wall as he jumped to the top of the building. Perhaps it was because her legs were hit. The figure became more awkward and disorientated. After leaping through 2 more buildings, Jiang Chen successfully forced her into the corner. With her back against the wall, the female assassin held onto her bleeding right leg as she stared gravely at the approaching Jiang Chen. Looks like there is an error in the information I collected. You are not just a foolish playboy. In a mocking voice, the female assassin said. I don't know how you obtained that information. Jiang Chen shrugged. Fury was deactivated as his eyes turned clear again. The landscape near the mansion was relatively flat. There were no tall buildings nor were anything surrounded with high walls. It was nearly impossible to observe the inside of the mansion from outside the base. She could only use the limited amount of information to analyze Jiang Chen's whereabouts. Jiang Chen was cautious in his mind. This person managed to sneak into the heart of the base. Looks like it was necessary to upgrade security. Your name? Jiang Chen stopped 5 meters away from her with a gun pointed at her head. The mask covered her face and her nose. Jiang Chen couldn't see her expression clearly. Compared to my name, shouldn't you be more worried about your own safety? The female assassin mocked as a victorious smile appeared on her face. Put down your weapon, or you could lose your hand. He had no knowledge that a giant man was standing 10 meters away with a rifle pointed directly at his arm. The killer's face carried a malevolent smile. Although the plan was to assassinate, it would be better if they could capture him alive. Not working alone. Jiang Chen let out a sigh, but he didn't put down the weapon. Instead, he glanced at the man standing meters away from him. "Watch your back," Jiang Chen said mischievously. The person was suddenly alerted and immediately pressed the trigger. But the bullet didn't hit anything, because the target disappeared out of thin air. He promptly turned the gun towards his back, but there was nothing behind him either. "Be careful!" Before he could hear the shout, his consciousness was terminated. Jiang Chen, who reappeared at the same place, pulled the trigger without hesitation, and the bullets penetrated through the back of the assassin's head. Then he turned his gun towards the female assassin, who was not willing to disclose her name. White blade reflected light directed at him. Jiang Chen abruptly riposted with his rifle. Ding! The dagger cut through the shell of the rifle, as the female assassin used this glimpse of opportunity to leap over. Jiang Chen immediately pulled the trigger, but she was already a body distance away from him. She grabbed onto the burning gun, and a second dagger appearing out of the other hand. Sparks flashed. Jiang Chen lifted his arm as the kinetic skeleton metal frame attached to the side of his arm, shielded against the hit that was aimed straight to his throat. "Go die!" Letting go of the rifle, Jiang Chen removed the dagger slashed into the gun as he stabbed fiercely toward the female assassin's eyes. Not so much. The swinging dagger blocked the hit. She threw away the rifle in her hand as another ping-pong ball-sized crystal appeared in her hand. The crystal emitted a dark green light as fierce and determination flashed across her face. She squeezed out a few words between her teeth. "Let's die together." Fuck, what a psychotic woman. Cold sweat rolled down his forehead. The continuous use of interdimensional travel consumed almost all the energy there was in the bracelet. "What do I do?" Bang! The sound of a gunshot interrupted the fight between the two. The bullet ripped off half of her arm as the hand holding the crystal fell to the ground. "Ah!" The agonizing scream almost penetrated Jiang Chen's eardrum as the female assassin that lost her arm tumbled to the back. Seeing that the assassin had fled, Jiang Chen kicked the dark green crystal away without stopping. The crystal exploded 10 meters away in midair. Light beamed down from the sky and locked onto the female assassin who was struggling to get up. She held onto her broken left arm with an agonized and frightened expression. Her two athletic but slim legs spread out on the concrete floor. Because of all the blood, such gesture did not look attractive at all. With heavy breathing, Jiang Chen threw away the dagger in his hand. He wiped off the cold sweat on his forehead as he narrowed his eyes to look in the sky. It was the helicopter Chu Nan. Chu Nan was piloting the helicopter. After the alarm rang, he, who was taking a stroll outside, immediately headed towards the helicopter pad. Half kneeling at the hatch door was Jiang. She held a sniper rifle in her hands. Her merciless expression was completely contrary to her usual dumbfoundedness. The cross sight in her field of vision locked onto the head of the female assassin. "No need to shoot, just maintain suppression." Seeing that Jiang Chen was okay, Sun Jiao, who was standing on the side, finally let out a breath of relief as she slowly opened her mouth. When she heard that assassin broke into the mansion and that Jiang Chen and Yao Yao were attacked, her heart almost jumped out of her throat, especially when she saw the image from the drones that Jiang Chen chased out alone. She almost burst out crying. Of course, it was only an expression. Sun Jiao would obviously not cry. She carried the laser rifle and jumped onto the helicopter. Jiang didn't respond. Her black hair was disheveled because of turbulence, but the hands that were holding onto the sniper rifle were steady. Sun Jiao looked perplexed from the side of her face, and she didn't say anything. She only signaled Chu Nan to lower the helicopter height in order to take Jiang Chen home. Sun Jiao could imagine the difficulty of sniping on the helicopter, especially with the heavy storm. With only instinct toward the weapon, she achieved this kind of accuracy. Sun Jiao began to reminisce about the past when she was active near Liuding Town, the not long period of time when they worked together. Commander, maybe you should really teach your husband. He is a leader. After all, this type of risky thing should be left for us. Chunan left out a sigh as he approached the building. He maneuvered the helicopter as he said jokingly, "How should I say this? He is not a bad boss." "MHMM," Sun Jiao half-heartedly replied. All of her focus was on Jiang Chen. The helicopter hovered beside the roof. Before the helicopter stabilized, Sun Jiao immediately jumped to the roof and hugged Jiang Chen. He held onto the gorgeous figure as he felt her warmth. Just as Jiang Chen wanted to say something, his expression turned peculiar. He tenderly patted her on the back as he let her teeth bite into his shoulder. "Is your hand Zodiac a dog?" Jiang Chen gasped for air in exaggeration. With her face slightly red, Sun Jiao was embarrassed, but her hand still clenched tightly onto Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen noticed that her eyes were red. "Sorry for making you worry." Jiang Chen caressed the luscious hair. He looked into the reddened eyes and began to blame himself. He didn't think too much in the heat of the moment. He only followed because of pure anger. His hasty move probably disrupted the entire base. Feeling the girl in his arms calm down, Jiang Chen turned around holding her hand and looked at the already fainted female assassin. "Let's see the real face of this rat." Anger flashed across Sun Jiao's face as her eyes narrowed. "I agree, for an unwelcomed guest, we must treat her properly." She already had plans as to how to torture this despicable person. "Whip candle, no, these punishments are too light. We will use the cruelest torture to find out the perpetrator behind this." With laser rifle in her hand, Sun Jiao walked up as she kicked off the mask on the assassin's face without mercy. "How is this possible?" Sun Jiao's pupils immediately contracted as she tumbled back a few steps. Her face was full of disbelief. Chapter 192, Sisters. "It has been tuned, but you should be careful when you use it. Since I haven't made one in a long time, actions with high complexity could cause a program error." After tuning the numbers on the computer, Jiang Lin removed the cords on the mechanical arm and gave it to Jiang Chen. The silica gel feeling was no different than the skin. If the port in the back was not made of metal, it would almost be the same as a woman's hand. Jiang Chen played with the mechanical hand for a moment and asked casually, "What's the cost to produce one of these?" "The titanium skeleton is a bit expensive, which costs around 31 crystals. The microchip used as processor along with electronic nerve were around 20 crystals in total. To be honest, I recommend purchasing microchips from Liuding Town. The chips there are not only cheap, but are also more advanced compared to the 6th Street. If we use their chips to produce kinetic skeletons, the stats in every category would improve." "Oh, I'll keep an eye out. Also, did you implant the thing I told you about?" "Already done. This is the control terminal." Jiang Lin put a thumb-sized memory drive in Jiang Chen's hands. Jiang Chen picked up the memory drive as he directly inserted it into the end of the EP before the screen began to load. If the user had any malicious intention, the battery would be locked, and it would instantly release power that executes the user, of course. This power could be adjusted if you don't want to kill the user right away. MHMM, beautiful. Speaking of this, do you not need to keep an eye on the kinetic skeleton production line? Jiang Chen stared at the rocket engine in the middle of the room as he asked with an odd expression. "I have already assigned the responsibilities to everyone and put what they needed to do in a handbook. I am only responsible for quality assurance and tuning, as well as ranking their work performance." Jiang Lin pushed the glasses up his nose and he said proudly. The ranking was geared towards the newly joined survivors, who are better known as the slaves. For those with outstanding work ethics, they would be promoted to lower citizens. Since it would not interfere with the production, Jiang Chen was too lazy to ridicule him to not stay on task. Therefore, how long would this thing stay in orbit for? Jiang Chen let out a sigh. "Ooh, this is not an exploration rocket." Jiang Lin scratched his head. "Not an exploration rocket." Jiang Chen was confused. MHMM, precisely speaking, it's a missile capable of carrying 1,000 kilograms of combat equipment. Bang! The mechanical arm dropped to the ground. How many of this can you produce? Jiang Chen had both of his hands on Jiang Lin's shoulders as he stared at Jiang Lin passionately. Jiang Lin felt goosebumps all over his back. He took a step back and forced a laugh. This thing cannot be mass-produced. It's hard to obtain the materials. I can only say I will do my best. What the fuck? 1,000 kilograms of load. Even if it carried the ancient TNT, it would instantly evaporate half of a street. If it was switched to the concentrated bomb common on wasteland, its power would be comparable to the mid-sized tactical nuke. Do your absolute best, Jiang Chen said sincerely. If he possessed this superweapon, it would without a doubt increase his odds in winning the war against the mutated humans. Jiang Lin took a deep breath and nodded. Jiang Chen picked up the mechanical arm off the ground and headed towards the direction of the mansion. When he entered the basement, he saw the female assassin strapped tightly on top of the operating table, as well as Sun Jia, who stood on the side with a perplexed expression. The DNA results are out. Lin stretched her body after busily working on the control panels for a long time. What's the result? Sun Jiao tightly clenched onto Lin's shoulders. Because their faces were so close together, Lin's face turned slightly red and looked away. She is indeed your younger sister. When she heard the confirmation, Sun Jiao's shoulder began to slacken. Jiang Chen noticed the perplexed expression on her face. He sighed, walked to her and hugged her around the shoulder. I'll spare her. No, she almost killed you and Yao Yao. Sun Jiao had determination in her eyes, but it was soon replaced with blankness. On one side lay the only relative she had in the world. On the other side stood the person she loves. I don't want to make this difficult for you. But leave it to me, trust me. Jiang Chen stared at her shaking eyes as he said with an assertive tone. With a blushed face, Sun Jiao lowered her head. Then I'll leave it to you. As she finished speaking, Sun Jiao pushed open the door and left the basement. Although she had thought of the countless of cruel ways to extract information from the assassin, when she realized that the assassin was actually her sister, she was no longer certain. To find her lost sister, she had covered the entire Wangai city with her footsteps. It was until she finally met Jiang Chen did she temporarily put a pause to the journey of searching for her family. If she stayed here, Jiang Chen must feel restrained because he has to consider her feeling. Sun Jiao, who already knew the meaning of tenderness, didn't want him to feel conflicted. So she chose to leave. Seeing Sun Jiao's back, Jiang Chen sighed. This is problematic. The assassin was the female boss sister. Could the plot get any more stereotypical than this? How about you take her as part of your collection as well, since your prey limit is anyone within 10 years both ways? Lin suggested. The joke was not made at the best time. Jiang Chen narrowed his eyes. Lin frightenedly trembled and lifted her hands to cover her mouth. How did she make the crystals explode? Did you figure it out? Under a normal circumstance, the energy in the crystal is very stable. Even in a high-temperature and high-pressure environment, it would not explode. The crystals could even be cut into smaller pieces, hence why it could be used as a currency. Based on DNA analysis, she could freely change her brain wave pattern. It is likely that she changed her brain wave pattern to coincide with a special particle chain within the crystals, which resulted in resonance. Through experimental analysis, once the particle chain is disrupted, the entire crystal structure would collapse, which would instantly release all the energy. This should be an ability that evolved from genetic vaccine. Also about the crystal. Lin seemed to have made a new discovery, but Jiang Chen didn't have the mood to be thinking about other things. I see, go back first, I'll find you later. He interrupted and ordered in an undertone. Do you not need my help anymore? Because the things happening next might not be PG. Jiang Chen shrugged his shoulder. Lin's face turned red as she cursed out while walking out in quick steps carrying her tablet. Pervert! Jiang Chen ignored Lin's bad mouthing as he quietly waited for her footsteps to disappear. He closed and locked the basement door, took a deep breath and walked to the female assassin. Sun Zioru, that was her name. If one carefully studies at her face, one would discover that her looks did resemble Sun Jiao. As for the differences, it was mainly that the assassin was shorter in height. She was also not as busty compared to her sister, and her face still carried a hint of immaturity. The broken hand was sprayed with medicine mist and bandaged up. Her limbs were locked onto the operating table with all four extended out. Her black combat suit was changed into loose white shirt and pants. Just by judging her current appearance alone, it was hard to imagine her as an assassin. He shook his head as he walked beside the operating table. Looking at the buttons with many unknown functions, he paused for a moment before randomly pressing down a button. Ah, the scream almost pierced through his eardrums. Jiang Chen had to cover his ears. Sun Zioru violently shook as her eyes turned white, and foam was dripping out of her mouth. A faint pungence appeared. Jiang Chen looked at the light yellow liquid dripping along the operating table, and an awkward expression appeared on his face. He only wanted to startle her and wake her up. He didn't think that the button was for electrocuting. But what are the purposes of the other buttons? Chapter 193, Punishment Cleaner Version. Sun Zioru regained consciousness, her body still feeling the lingering effects of paralysis. She glared fiercely at Jiang Chen, then her gaze darted around the basement. "Don't bother, there isn't a single crystal in this basement," Jiang Chen said with a calm smile. "What did you do to me?" Sun Zioru demanded, her eyes narrowing as she noticed her black combat suit had been replaced with plain clothes. Anger flickered across her face, but Jiang Chen's expression remained unchanged. "Your name is Sun Zioru." Sun Zioru tensed, looking at Jiang Chen with sharp alertness. She said nothing, clearly wondering how he knew her name. Looks like she hasn't seen Sun Jiao yet, Jiang Chen thought. "Where are you from? Why did you try to assassinate me?" Jiang Chen pulled up a chair, sitting beside the operating table. A determined, scornful laugh escaped Sun Zioru. "You really think I'm going to tell you?" "How would I know without trying?" Jiang Chen shrugged. "If possible, I'd prefer not to resort to harsh methods, especially with someone like you." "Oh, if it's just about enduring some discomfort, you're far from getting anything from me," Sun Zioru mocked, clearly having braced herself for a rough interrogation. "Have you been implanted with a chip?" Jiang Chen asked, his voice even, ignoring her taunt. "Only fools would willingly accept those leashes," she replied, her tone contemptuous. "So no slavery chip. And with Sun Jiao as her only known family, hostage leverage was unlikely. Was it absolute loyalty then? Hard to believe in the lawless wasteland." "Do you have a sister?" Jiang Chen asked, watching her closely. Her expression didn't flicker. "I have no family." Jiang Chen felt a pang, wondering how Sun Jiao would feel hearing those words. It seemed her sister truly didn't remember her. Truth-telling serums were ineffective on those with genetic modifications. Without a lie detector and facing such defiance, Jiang Chen felt a familiar frustration. This was Sun Jiao's sister, his sister-in-law, by extension. Standard interrogation, even torture, was the grim reality for assassins, but the thought of using such methods on her was deeply troubling. "Then let's make a deal," Jiang Chen offered, deciding to try a different approach. "Cooperate, tell me what I need to know, and I can let you go. I'll even give you 10,000 crystals." To his dismay, her stubbornness was a match for her sister's. "Crystals?" Her voice dripped with arrogance. "You don't understand what this is about at all." "Oh, don't you use crystals as currency?" Jiang Chen pressed, trying to draw her out. "Ignorant," the mockery was blatant. A flash of anger went through Jiang Chen, but he kept his face impassive. He reached for a long needle injector from the tray beside the table. "Do you know what this is?" Jiang Chen held the needle up. "What?" Sun Zioru tilted her chin up, scornful. "Nerve catalyst," Jiang Chen stated, his voice low. "It will significantly increase your nerve cell activity. In simple terms, it will make you far more susceptible to discomfort and psychological pressure." He gently pushed the plunger, a drop of colorless liquid appearing at the tip. "You're a monster," Sun Zioru hissed. her expression finally shifting as she tried to pull away, her restraints holding her fast. "I don't have time to waste on you," Jiang Chen said, his tone hardening. "The mutated humans are across the river and my people are waiting for orders. You have two choices. Tell me the truth now or be compelled to tell the truth." This potent substance had been a costly acquisition from the 6th Street black market. "Then why don't you try?" Sun Xiaoru spat defiantly. Jiang Chen sidestepped it, his patience gone. He moved with grim resolve and administered the injection. Watching her eyes widen with a mix of fear and despair, he emptied the syringe. Her limbs twitched, and a tremor ran through her body. It took a long while for her breathing to steady, though her voice was now laced with a noticeable tremor when she finally spoke. You vile human." Not feeling so defiant now, Jiang Chen discarded the injector, a grim set to his mouth. Her reply was a string of curses, barely coherent through her trembling. If he was going to do this, he had to see it through. Jiang Chen began the interrogation in earnest, applying calculated pressure. "Wu," her cry was sharp. "Are you ready to talk now, or shall we continue?" In your dreams." "Very well." Jiang Chen adjusted one of the dials on the nearby equipment. The scream echoed through the basement. Upstairs, Lin, who had quietly sneaked back to listen out of curiosity, pressed an ear to the door. She shivered at the sound and quickly retracted her head. What was he doing in there? Recalling her earlier provocations of Jiang Chen, she shuddered again and scurried away from the basement entrance. 2 hours later, looking at Sun Xiaoru, now pale, exhausted, and unresponsive on the operating table, Jiang Chen rubbed his weary temples. Even with the nerve catalyst, her will had been formidable. The interrogation had clearly taken a severe toll on her. This went too far, he thought, a heavy feeling settling in his chest. He couldn't think of a less brutal way to get the information he desperately needed, not from someone this resistant. He hadn't intended to break her so completely. The mental trauma that would take time to heal, if ever. Jiang Chen picked up his notebook, filled with extracted information, and hastily left the basement. At the door he met Sun Jiao, her expression unreadable. "Is it over?" "IHaveAMansion," Jiang Chen nodded, unable to meet her eyes fully. Sun Jiao stepped forward and without a word kissed him. Jiang Chen, surprised, returned the kiss, a silent, heavy understanding passing between them. When they parted, he started, "Sorry, I—" "Don't apologize," Sun Jiao interrupted, her voice quiet but firm. "She's an assassin, she knew the risks. Assassins face execution. I'm just thankful you spared her life. Any damage can be healed with time." She seemed to have come to terms with the grim necessity. "No, I didn't physically injure her in the conventional sense," Jiang Chen began, then hesitated, the words catching in his throat. "But she provoked me, I lost my composure, and the methods I used." His voice trailed off, his awkwardness palpable. Sun Jiao paused, a complex emotion in her eyes. She gently touched his arm. "It must have been necessary, but ensure she recovers." Seeing Sun Jiao's conflicted but ultimately understanding gaze, Jiang Chen felt a knot in his stomach. He wanted to explain, to make her understand the weight of what he'd done, but words failed him. He would have to talk to her properly later, in private. Perhaps, he thought with a sinking heart, this was the cruelest thing he had ever been forced to do. Chapter 194, Klein Particles. The Northern Alliance District. As one of the rare safe havens inside Pan-Pacific area, the description of this place was only applicable when compared to the ruins and shambles. The survivors left on this wasteland migrated north as they established a survivor camp along the Yellow River south of the Golden City. The population density of this area was not high before the war. Therefore, the concentration of zombies was naturally low. Without the direct impact of a nuclear weapon, the radiation level was much lower compared to developed area. The mutant population was also meager. Other than the mutants that migrated from north of the Golden City, this place possessed almost no lethal danger. Stability brought order and prosperity. Despite the harsh environment and the barren lands, they still managed to plot out thousands of acres of arable land on the wasteland. Despite the low production, it ultimately managed to feed the tens of thousands of survivors who fled here. Dictatorship, power, stability. These three words could holistically describe this empire. Although it was named as the Northern Alliance, the armed force that controlled the security of this place of land controlled the life of all the survivors. In the form of military government, they managed the food production and subsequently dictated the entire area. It was rumored that they had been plotting against Wangai City for a long time already. Of course, Sun Zioru didn't belong to the military government, but rather a religious group based on the northern area, the Dusk Church. They promoted the forthcoming of an apocalypse and fully believed the terror of the apocalypse. But different from the majority of people who lost hope, they also firmly believed that their spiritual leader Bo Yu could lead them to escape the solar system, find a second sun, and establish a new home for the humans. It was quite a coincidence. The purpose of their trip to Wangai City was to obtain the Project Garden of Eden, buried in Fallout Shelter 5, and to acquire the technology to establish the biosphere in space. To be able to enter the planning bureau inside the city and obtain the exact location of Fallout Shelter 5, they were not reluctant to partner up with the mutated humans from the 7th area. All the firearms of the mutated human, as well as the security password of the Carmen Pharmaceutical, were provided by them. But unfortunately, their fate was determined and they were to return empty-handed. Other than metal debris, there was nothing left there. After clearing out the mutated creature that infiltrated Fallout Shelter 5, Jiang Chen blew up the server of the article intelligence and cleaned out anything useful inside. As for the metal box that stored Project Garden of Eden, after Lin Lin copied all the information to the chip inside her head, Jiang Chen destroyed the original copy. Jiang Chen wondered what kind of expression would be on Bo Yu's face once he went through all the trouble to finally enter to Fallout Shelter 5 and only found junks inside. But regardless, even if Jiang Chen knew what happened to Fallout Shelter 5, he could not stand in front of him and say, "I already cleared Fallout Shelter 5 and I have taken everything away." In this case, conflict was inevitable. Jiang Chen could not let the mutated humans inside Qingpu. The leader of the Dusk Church Bo Yu would not give up on entering the city center. When he sent the assassin, he already demonstrated his hostility. As to how the weapons and supplies would be transported to Wangai, and how she joined the Dusk, Sun Zioru didn't have those memories. Since she joined the cult at a very young age and based on the faith that all religions have the same tendencies, brainwashing was an unavoidable step. After all, it was about the crystals. In the end, Sun Zioru, in her half-unconscious state, blurted out random things. After attempting to piece together her broken sentences, Jiang Chen could not summarize the information she said. But a keyword she continuously emphasized drew his attention. Klein particles. It was the third time he has heard this word. Just as he pushed open Lin Lin's door, Jiang Chen heard a sudden whimper. He looked confusedly at the quivering Lin Lin. "What happened to you?" "No, nothing." The sharp voice seemed to be out of tune. Was she traumatized somehow? Due to Lin Lin being regularly irregular, Jiang Chen wasn't bothered by it, and he cut straight to the topic. "About what happened last time, I have a question." Lin Lin cutely gulped as she nodded her head intensely. It was rare that she was this cooperative. Usually she would start with, "Why do I have to help you?" Jiang Chen obviously didn't know that the disobedient Lin Lin sneaked back when he closed the door and heard some bad things. "Then I am going to ask last time, it was Ting that shot out the red light." Jiang Chen's expression was weird when he said the name Ting. Although in that virtual world, she entered it in the form of a human and became a couple with him, her original form is a bug. Lin Lin nodded furiously. "That particle, what exactly is it?" When she heard this, Lin Lin's expression turned earnest. That's what I wanted to say. I found something abnormal on the surface of the crystal. As she finished saying, Lin Lin ran to the front of the experiment table. She picked up a polished crystal and put it inside the glass sphere of an odd-looking equipment. This is... You won't know even if I tell you. It is a really convenient equipment. Before I always thought you guys collected them because they were shiny, and that because they could also replace hydrocarbon as an energy source. But after doing some experiments, this thing is not as simple as it looks. Inside the glass sphere, the dark green crystal began to change color. The complete combustion of the energy of a crystal could release the energy equivalent to 2.47 kg of coal. After, it would turn into this form. The crystal lost its shine and changed into a quartz-like appearance. And then, Jiang Chen looked at the crystal keenly. Lin Lin didn't answer Jiang Chen's question. Instead, she asked rhetorically with mysteriousness on her face, "Have you heard of the fourth dimension?" Fourth dimension, the dimension that includes time. Jiang Chen had heard this before as he had been through university after all. Then let me ask you another question. Have you heard about energy that belongs to the fourth dimension? Jiang Chen was dumbfounded. One, because it was too abstract. Two, because he didn't know why she suddenly brought up the question. Every matter in this world, including you and me, could be measured by three measurements: length, width, and height. These are all measurements of the third dimension. But if time is added to the list, then the Jiang Chen today would be completely different from the Jiang Chen tomorrow. This would be the fourth dimension. The same as the 1.5 m Lin Lin is completely different than the 2 m Lin Lin in the third dimension. If we can add a timeline to energy, imagine this: the crystal's energy today have been used, but a few thousand years later, its energy would be filled up again. Wait, what about the conservation of energy? Jiang Chen had to interrupt. Of course it is conserved, because from the start the Klein particle exists in the fourth dimension, but it is limited to a point that we can't see. But at a certain time point, some Klein particles would fall to the third dimension. In our eyes, the most obvious demonstration would be energized. Because it was too scientifically fictional, despite Lin Lin being extremely slow and detailed in her description, Jiang Chen still felt lost. You can try this crystal, use your power to draw its energy. Remember, the energy amount of this crystal before was 5. As she spoke, Lin Lin put the colorless crystal in Jiang Chen's hand. It was already empty. Charging the interdimensional bracelet with it would be impossible. As he thought this through, Jiang Chen still followed Lin Lin's instruction and put the crystal in his hand. Then his expression turned to astonishment. He somehow obtained energy from the empty crystal. The amount of energy that supplied the bracelet was no less than the crystal with 5 energy points. Is there energy remaining? Jiang Chen asked in disbelief. Lin Lin shook her head. The energy belonging to the third dimension has been completely exhausted. You could bring this crystal to any production equipment, and it could not be used as a source of energy. But just as I had suspected, your interdimensional bracelet could directly draw Klein particles from the fourth dimension. Another way to say this is that you exhausted the energy that could appear in the crystal in the future. Jiang Chen's eyes widened as he stared at his right wrist, the tattoo. No, it could also draw electricity to charge it. It would cost 100 watts of electricity to charge it to full with crystal. It would only cost 10 energy points. But based on your explanation, 1 energy crystal, with the energy fallen to the third dimension, was equivalent to 2.47 kilograms of coal. 10 energy points of crystal Klein particles must at least exceed 100 watts of electricity by 10 folds. Lin Lin sighed. Think carefully. When you use electricity to charge interdimensional bracelet, did electricity follow your hand to go into the ground? Jiang Chen tightened his eyebrows as he recollected when he charged before. He shook his head. No. Of course not. If that happened, you would be fried, Lin Lin said in frustration. The electricity absorbed by your bracelet is not the electricity generated through electron flowing from the negative end to positive end, but rather it completely consumed the electron itself. It is complicated to explain, but you could interpret it as the particle has completed vanished. Therefore, you wouldn't think that with only 100 watts of electricity, it could manage to travel through space dimensions. In the end, Lin ridiculed. Therefore, Crystal, this type of biological formation is a container for Klein particles. That's right. As to how exactly it contained the mysterious Klein particle, I haven't figured it out yet. But Crystal is not as simple as it appears to be, including the female assassin detonating the crystal, as well as the red beam shot up by Ting. They are all phenomenon of Klein particles releasing its energy to the third dimension. Lin explained with an earnest face. Chapter 195, The Unpeaceful 6th Street. The unrest that happened overnight had been settled. The assassin was caught and captured in the mansion's basement. The boss was free of harm, and everyone let out a sigh of relief. Hearing that assassin sneaked into the base, Cheng Weiguo, who was responsible for the security of the base, immediately lectured and cursed the soldiers patrolling on the wall. He pulled the night emblems off of their chest and ordered them to kneel in the snow naked for an entire day as punishment. In this type of weather, to kneel in the snow for an entire day, even with the genetic vaccine, they would lose their life. But Jiang Chen spared them with his words. It was not their fault. Being able to avoid the drones equipped with the infrared sensor, the assassin must be skillful. Through his combat with Sun Xiaoru, Jiang Chen discovered that she was not to be underestimated. Because of the existence of a powerful enemy, punishing their own just to release anger was no doubt a foolish move. Although Jiang Chen didn't understand the crafts of leading people, he still could think wearing others' shoes. This humiliation will be washed away by your future achievement. If you really feel guilty, then use your loyalty to repay, not your life. Jiang Chen said to the humiliated naked knights who were kneeling on the ground. Although he spared the patrolling soldiers, the topic of base security was the conversation around the table again. How to maximize the resource available to increase the effectiveness of patrol. Jiang Chen suggested a brutal but straightforward idea. Bulldoze all the buildings within 100-meter radius outside of the base to clear out the area. They would reuse the construction materials as much as possible. If they couldn't, then they would drag 100 meters out and pile it up. Without buildings to take cover, it would not be as easy to infiltrate the base under the dual surveillance of drones and patrols. This issue was finally resolved. The bedroom wall was disfigured by the bullets and required renovation. Therefore, Jiang Chen had to choose a different room to sleep. But Sun Jiao already made the decision for him as she dragged him into her own bedroom. She was ready to use her own body to interrogate him to see what exactly he did to her sister. Of course, there was no sense of blame. However, the fact that her man slept with her own sister made the possessive Miss Sun Jiao displeased. The result of a displeased Sun Jiao was that Jiang Chen had to stay up tonight. The only pitiful person was Yao. After she recovered from the shock, the small lowly worked up the courage to suggest that if he had nowhere to stay, he could stay with Yao. But Sister Sun Jiao was one step ahead, so Yao could only pout at the closed door in disappointment. The next morning, Jiang Chen bumped into Yao, who just like him also had dark circles. Feeling giddy over the fact that he didn't manage to fulfill his promise, Jiang Chen suggested a compensation plan to stay with her for the entire day. Am I really not heavy? Yao turned around asking worriedly. Not heavy, Yao, you are really light. Jiang Chen quickly shook his head. A timid smile appeared on Yao's face, and she happily turned to look in the front. She dangled her feet in the air while moving her tiny butt backward to sit in a more comfortable position. But this troubled Jiang Chen. It was not the weight, but the tender feeling scratching on his legs had touched an indescribable place. To simply describe the state between these two people. Inside the bedroom of a girl, Jiang Chen sat on the side of the soft bed, and Yao sat on his legs. He took a deep breath as he tried his hardest to suppress the part of him from raising up. It would be awkward if it stood up. but a faint fragrance entered his nostril because of his deep breath. The tip of his head felt a tingling sensation. Ew. Maybe it was because she felt something hard or sensed Jiang Chen's trouble. Yao Yao's face began to turn red. "Big brother, you don't need to endure this." As she said that, Yao Yao buried her tiny head and silently putting her tablet down. Her feet also stopped dangling. The long shaking eyelashes seemed to be waiting for something. "No, it's better to endure." After an arduous internal conflict, Jiang Chen finally suppressed his desire, and he decided not to put his claws on Yao Yao. Seeing that Jiang Chen made no moves, Yao Yao pouted her mouth but didn't say anything as she continued to research on her tablet. Jiang Chen let out a relief as he glanced at the dazzling amount of information on the tablet. The hiddenly shocked, Jiang Chen also picked up his own tablet off the table and began to take care of his own business. There was a large discrepancy of force at the front line. Based on the information provided by Zhao Gang, it is expected that after 20 days, the mutated human force would be ready to attack. When that happens, the river below the Zhufeng Highway Bridge would be frozen. The mutated humans would launch their attack at that time. On the screen was a visual sent back from the Hummingbird drone. Because of the existence of an anti-air machine gun, the task of capturing video footage could not be given to Chu Nan. The dense red dots accumulated behind the snow hill on the side of the highway, as well as the anti-air machine guns and cannons covered in white cloths. If Jiang Lin's missile is completed, it would only take one hit to achieve what I want. Jiang Chen fantasized in his head but quickly shook his head. He then called Zhou Guoping from the 6th Street. The phone was quickly picked up. Zhou Guoping's bald head appeared on the screen. "Hello, boss, do you need me to do something?" The respectful voice lightened his mood. "I need mercenaries. Do you know any you are familiar with at 6th Street? Jiang Chen cut straight to the topic. "Mercenaries?" Zhou Guoping paused for a moment. "Do you know already, boss?" "No." Jiang Chen's expression was odd. He didn't understand what Zhou Guoping said. There is a rumor recently on 6th Street. It said that the wreckages of God's cane lie inside somewhere in the city center. Of course, the validity of the information has yet to be confirmed. I am still investigating. If, boss, you are also interested in that thing, I can help you investigate carefully," Zhou Guoping said mysteriously. The God's cane. Jiang Chen was lost. Just as he was about to ask what it was, he suddenly recalled the colonel's diary he read in the virtual world. "Oh, I almost forgot that you are not from Wangai City." Zhou Guoping slapped his forehead as he quickly explained. "It's a sky-based weapon, also known as an orbital weapon." "I know, but what does that have to do with the 6th Street?" Jiang Chen interrupted Zhou Guoping's explanation. He only wanted to listen to critical information. A mysterious wealthy man sent out quests at major bars and set a reward of 1 million crystals for the wreckage of God's cane. 1 million crystals? Fuck, is that person crazy? Jiang Chen almost jumped up. Yao Yao looked at Jiang Chen in confusion. She moved her butt as she readjusted the way she sat. The amount has been verified by 6th Street officials. The quest had been stamped with the metal seal. With 6th Street's official reputation, this quest shouldn't be fraudulent. Zhou Guoping took a moment. He continued. The mercenaries stationed in the 6th Street have gone insane. There are fewer missions in the winter as all of those people like to spend their days rotting away in the bars. Now someone offered such an astronomical number. Even the not-so-strong hunting teams began to make moves. Jiang Chen's eyebrows furrowed. "So you are saying it's hard to hire people now?" "I wouldn't say it is hard, but the price is definitely higher." "That's okay, I'll send you the mission. Also, regarding the God's cane, keep an eye out for me." "Yes, boss," Zhou Guoping exaggeratedly bowed. Jiang Chen closed the communication menu and rubbed his nose. He had an ominous feeling. The snow this year would be much colder compared to the years before. Chapter 196, Mercenaries. Snow as thick as a blanket covered the desolated street. Other than the worker removing snow, the only noise on the entire street was the freezing northern wind. Oh, not quite. There was still one place that maintained the liveliness of spring. People shouted, celebrated, unleashed their pressure, and spent away their dreary days. This place was the Fake Leg Bar. Although they have only been open for less than 1 month, the high-quality alcohol garnered the hearts of all the survivors. In front of the bar counter, the muscular mercenary had a foot on the chair as he showed off his scars drunkenly. The barely covered lady walked among the dark corners of the bar to wait for the prey of the night. Gamblers put 2 tables together as they played poker and dices. Just based on these few people, this place would appear as no different than the Bullet Shell Bar on the next street. The only difference was, the security here was top-notch, to the point of unbelievable. But it was not like this when the bar just opened. Alcohol was a lucrative industry, regardless of the geographic location. The existence of Fake Leg Bar, without a doubt, ended the reign of bars on the entire street. When people tried the beer with the sweet wheat aroma, no one would be interested in the stuff made with industrial alcohol. Even the wealthy in the inner circle would occasionally drop by to have a drink or two. The high profitability naturally drew the jealousy of competitors. When threatening didn't work, the owner of each bar used all kinds of despicable techniques. Fights, theft, even blackmail. But those who used these techniques obviously underestimated Zhou Guoping's ability. His profession was a bandit. In terms of despicable techniques, he was the master of all. Bribery, assassination, and vandalism. After chopping down 6 dirty, overreaching hands consecutively, the people looking for trouble finally became cautiously. Immediately, he spread out a rumor that the boss of the store had a special connection with the group of 10 council members. After hearing the news, people were still hesitating if they should take the risk and finally give up the ill intentions in their mind. They wondered if they should just accept the fact that Fake Leg Bar dominated the market. Other than great security, the design of the bar was also customer-friendly. The second and third floor were renovated into rooms, providing privacy for the males and females that needed their own space, and to provide the wary survivors a place to release their deep level of stress. Like usual, Zhou Guoping wore a gray suit. He casually sat at a wooden table as he chatted with the mercenaries that wandered the wasteland. The talkative boss garnered the friendliness from the mercenaries. Even his blad head became a bright spot for this bar. Just like the grandpa in KFC. As to why, it was because if someone talked about something interesting, he would put out a tab that drinks would be on the house. And at the northern area of city center, guess what I saw? I saw a mother of death claw. Damn it, I thought it was just a nuclear crater, so I wanted to see if there was anything worthy inside. Okay, buddy, mother of death claw would only return to nuclear crater when they give birth. In the winter, they would usually hide in a cave. You are bullshitting too much. A middle-aged man smiled. He took the cigar out of his mouth, shook it in the dust tray. His face had a frightening scar that stretched from his left eye to the right tip of his mouth. Because of this scar, his smile looked daunting. If the one-eyed Lev said that, then it must be. That's right, buddy. The scar on this old fellow's face was left by the mother of Death Claw. The young man turned red. He took a big gulp of the beer to disguise the embarrassment. Zhou Guoping looked at the chatting mercenaries with a smile, but he was planning in his mind as to when he should speak and who he should hire. The young man should be new to the scene. At least he didn't look like he was in the profession before. As to the Slavic middle-aged man, he must be a character. It was rumored that he was a fighter jet pilot for CCCP. He didn't get sent back after the war. Instead, he was taken to Wangai City as the special experiment test subject. When the apocalypse happened, he used his impeccable skills to escape from the lab before he started to wander on the wasteland. But Zhou Guoping didn't plan to hire him. Regardless of how powerful he was only a lone traveler. The boss' instruction was that he needed a lot of people, a team at least the size of 50 people. It was difficult, especially in the environment where everyone was plotting for the city center. But the boss's order is absolute. Zhou Guoping's eyes continually glanced at the door. He was waiting for a person to show up. The oak door was pushed open, as a gust of cold wind mixed with ice shards blew inside. The man drinking beside the door shivered because of the wind. Just as he was about to curse at the person who opened the door, he saw the person's face clearly, and the swear that was about to burst out of him was swallowed down. Buzzcut gray winter suit, he looked rather ordinary. When he stepped into the bar, he was not rowdy like most people. Instead, he sat at the counter with a low profile and ordered a beer. But when Zhuo Guoping saw the person, his eyes immediately lit up and walked over with a smile. It was Luo Yang, the leader of the Black Blood mercenaries. Although he had an ordinary face, he possessed an ability that is not to be underestimated by anyone. On top of that, he had the abilities of the 70 warriors who fight for him. "How's the reward today?" Zhou Guoping sat beside him and used a casual tone to chat with him. "Terrible, other than snow, there was blood. The northern part of the city center has been completely explored. A zombie nest was even cleared out and there were no signs of the satellite wreckage at all." Luo Yang took a sip of his drink as he warily rubbed his head. "Nothing at all. Basically, only when you enter the city center would you start to have some respect for the dumb zombies. It was so dense, and you couldn't see the end. Our truck mulled through the crowd and fired fiercely into the herds of zombies. Even then, we were almost stuck there twice. Have an open mind, buddy. Since that is the world of zombies, even Deathclaw would have to avoid there." Zhuo Guoping comforted him as he took out a pack of cigarette and handed one to him. Luo Yang let out a sigh and lit one for himself. "Has there been any good missions recently?" "You give up on the 1 million reward mission." Zhuo Guoping cracked a smile. "I can't use my brother's life to take the risk. I have a feeling that it would be a pit without a bottom. It can't be filled regardless of how many lives were shed." When he heard 1 million crystals, greed radiated through Luo Yang's eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a grave concern. Compared to his colleagues that dove into city center like flies, he maintained some rationality. "Let's talk about something happy. I happen to have a mission." "How much money?" He took a sip as Luo Yang said quite curiously. 10,000 crystals." "What?" Luo Yang spat the beer out. He looked at Zhuo Guoping with eyes widened. 10,000. Are you sure?" "I am certain." Zhuo Guoping nodded his head with eyes narrowed. "What's the mission?" Luo Yang wiped his mouth as he said cautiously. "Have you heard the Fishbone Base?" Zhuo Guoping said nonchalantly. "I have heard a thing or two. An external forces base stationed in Wangai City with quite a powerful force. Because the trades with Zhao Corporation were conducted secretly, Zhou Guoping didn't reveal the boss behind this bar. So, to the outside, the Fishbone Base was a mystery. Most of the people only knew that there was a base in Qingpu, but even the exact location was unknown. As to why it was obvious, there were a countless number of survivor camps on the wasteland, but most were unfriendly. For example, the Huizhang mercenaries were already wiped out. The hirer is their boss. As for the mission, it is on here." As he spoke, Zhou Guoping took out a sheet of paper and put it on the counter. After wavering for a moment, Luo Yang picked up the contract. He scanned the paper and his expression turned more and more stern. "This is impossible. What kind of joke is this? Stopping the mutated humans from 7th area at Teifu River. This is asking my men to die." "Is that the case? If you think that way, then it is okay, although I personally think it is a pity to give it up." Zhou Guoping sighed, pretending to feel pitiful as he took back the contract. "I don't see where the pity is coming from. You have to have your life to spend money." Luo Yang laughed. "Do you think the Fishbone Base will lose?" Zhou Guoping asked with a smile. "Based on what I know, there are 3,000-something mutated humans at the 7th area. Although they might not be the smartest, they are natural warriors," Luo Yang said. "Even if they only bring half of the people, it would be at least 1,500 people. A soldier discrepancy of more than 10 times. Only a dumbass would accept this mission. Mutated humans would squash them like ants." Luo Yang took a big chug as he shook his head in disappointment. He obviously was not disappointed at the fate of the Fishbone Base, but rather he was sad over the 10,000 crystals that slipped away before his own eyes. But based on my information, the Fishbone base has quite a powerful force, such as heavy firearms. Zhou Guoping smiled. Heavy firearms, haha. Luo Yang scorned. He didn't agree. He knew a few tactics of mutated humans. The mutated humans occupying the steel factory at the 7th area used steel almost lavishly. With their pure muscle strength, they could carry the thick C-grade steel armor to take charge. It was a nightmare for all light infantries. Heavy firearms. Okay, it was effective. But when all the mutated humans spread out and charge over the wide frozen river, how many shots would the cannons manage to fire? Once the mutated humans passed through the line of defense, no firearms would be useful, and the subsequent battle will likely become a one-sided slaughter. As for the exact fighting tactics as the middleman, I am not sure. But in your opinion, if they have an external force, without a certain confidence in victory, would they fight to the death for Qingpu? Regardless if they have confidence or not, for us, the risk is too high. Luo Yang shook his head. But risk and reward is proportional, isn't that right? Or you wouldn't be taking your men into the city center. Luo Yang's expression was rather awkward when he heard those words. Seeing this, Zhuo Guoping paused and lowered his voice. I have a piece of information here. Are you interested? Luo Yang saw the mysteriousness of Zhuo Guoping and his expression turned serious, waiting for him to finish. Other than this 10,000 crystals, there is also another perk. I can release the information to you, but do understand that it is against the rules. For the sake of my business, I hope you can keep this a secret. Ahem, Mr. Zhou, you know me very well. Of course, this is why I found you for this mission. 10% of the profit of a trade route between Qingpu and Liuding Town. The type of trade is food. Chapter 197, Gathering a Force. Zhou Guoping brought a good news from the 6th Street. Black Blood mercenaries accepted the mission and mobilized to Teifu River the next day. In addition to the new recruits, a mercenary group of 85 people on the wasteland could be considered a sizable force. When Zhou Guoping threw a bait of 10% food trade profit, Luo Yang agreed without the slightest hesitation. The popularity of the food industry in 6th Street was proven to be a lucrative business, and because of this, Zhao Corporation controlling the entire market had crystals flooding in, and everyone in 6th Street was well aware of this. Hearing Zhou Guoping's words and considering the relationship between the Fishbone base and Zhao Corporation, it finally dawned on Luo Yang. The food in the 6th Street actually came from the Fishbone base. Presumably, Zhao Chenwu, that old fox, was controlling the underground sewerage entrance which must be leading to the Fishbone base. But Luo Yang didn't spread the shocking piece of news out, since the less the number of people knew, the more advantageous it would be for him. If he could manage to get a slice of the pie of the trade route to Liuding Town, he would accept the mission at whatever cost. With Black Blood mercenaries, reputation, there wouldn't be a problem in transporting the goods from Qingpu to Liuding Town, situated at the exit of the Yangtze River. With a stable source of income, Black Blood mercenaries, equipment and size would expand and improve, and his prestige would consequently heighten. If he could manage to become a council member, he would be able to join the ranks of the inner circle of the powerful. Despite having accepted the mission, there was one point he was confused about. Since Fishbone Base had a special relationship with Zhao Corporation, why didn't they request help from them? To protect his own interest, Zhao Chenwu would do anything to help, wouldn't he? Jiang Chen had obviously considered this problem. It's just that. How did you get in trouble again? Sitting in the virtual boardroom, Zhao Chenwu smiled wryly. Trouble finds me, Jiang Chen shrugged. 6th Street is not too peaceful these days. I really can't send out some forces to face the mutated humans from the 7th area. Maybe you should consider relocating. Zhao Chenwu pondered for a moment before proposing. Relocate? That means all my efforts would have gone to waste. I have spent almost 400,000 crystals for the construction of the base. At any rate, I won't give up on the base, especially since my odds of winning are not low. Then I'll pray for your victory. The batch of Sentinel machine guns, I'm finally able to fulfill the contract under the pressure of the council, and I can deliver it to you tomorrow. Pressure from the higher-ups. When did the council start encouraging a breach of contract? Jiang Chen jested. It is a critical time. What kind of trouble did you guys encounter? Seeing the graveness on Zhao Chenwu's face, Jiang Chen also became serious. Although it is considered a secret, if it was like any time before, the news would spread out regardless. The military government controlling Northern Alliance District has declared war on us, and they are currently on their way. It's them. Have you heard already? Seeing the shock on Jiang Chen's face, Zhao Chenwu shrugged. In order to obtain the space-based weapon wreckage landed somewhere in the metropolis, they came from thousands of miles away to incite trouble. Zhao Chenwu obviously misinterpreted something. The reason why Jiang Chen got shocked was that the organization that partnered up with the mutated humans was also from the Northern Alliance District. Except it was not the military government but a rather strange organization with an even peculiar name, the Dusk Church. The gods came, Jiang Chen asked solemnly. That's right. To defend against Northern Alliance's invasion, the group of 10 council passed a proposal to create a defense line at the rural area to defend against the invasion. But if it was just this, it wouldn't be so problematic. Zhao Chenwu's face was cast in gloom. He paused before continuing. Although we agreed to fight off the enemy before hunting for the treasure, almost everyone has already been secretly sending in exploration teams into the metropolis. Especially when the news of 1 million crystals mission has spread out, everyone has gone insane. Those fools, who were previously reserved and heading out secretly, are now blatantly sending out their forces and rushing downtown. Just like those gamblers who had completely lost their mind on a gambling table. No one has realized that doing this at this time is foolish. Jiang Chen had no other emotion except for derision. Not everyone is foolish, and that includes me. Zhao Chenwu's bleak expression stared at the table. If anyone obtains that thing, it would be a nightmare for everyone else. It could dominate all life and death, just like a scepter from God. Saying this, the ruthless businessman had a hint of insanity between his brows. Just imagine this. If there is a sword hanging over everyone's head, who else can resist your reign? It only takes one shot from that tungsten rod that can't be intercepted to silence all voice of resistance. And that sword is now somewhere in the city center, behind all of us. Now, everyone wants to become a person wielding the sword. This damn democracy. Everyone wanted to become the dictator. If there was only a single voice from the beginning, it wouldn't be this chaotic. Asking help from Zhao Chenwu was not possible anymore, but that was to be expected. He already had enough chips in his hands. Without 1 or 2 guests, it wouldn't interfere with the fireworks. Counting in the black blood mercenaries, the total number of soldiers that could fight on the front line had already reached 200 people. Although there was still a huge discrepancy, he still had his last resort. That was none other than the survivors from Qingpu. After the last expedition, they had been unified under the Fishbone Base banner. After a month of doing business, the relationship between the two parties was further strengthened. Since the beginning, Jiang Chen had always included them in the plan, and he was just waiting for an opportunity. The opportunity to unite everyone, the opportunity to display the might of Fishbone Base. And now, the opportunity had presented itself. Outside of the Fishbone Base, in front of the concrete building used for trading goods, a long lineup could be seen. Long time no see, Zhao Gang. Ma Zhangchen hugged his old friend whom he hadn't seen for a while as he regarded the winter garment on Zhao Gang enviously. The whole set would probably cost 30-40 crystals, which would be equivalent to the price of a Reaper rifle. Despite Zhao Gang's usual taciturn behavior, when he saw his old friend, a smile emerged on his face. Jiang Chen called Chen Weiguo back yesterday and was once again sent to the front line. Zhao Gang pulled Ma Zhangchen to the side. He passed him a cigarette while he also put one in his own mouth and then lit it up. How are you doing these days? Same old, nice smell. What brand is this? The base's own produce. The boss brought it back as part of the benefits for employees. As for its exact origin, Zhao Gang couldn't be bothered about it. The winter is so cold, and you guys are quite well off, Ma Jiang remarked as he enviously eyed the large-caliber machine gun on the wall. It should be us, shouldn't it? The two stared at each other and started laughing. The line in front of the concrete building moved up slowly. People coming out of the room had switched into the winter gear as they entered the base under the supervision of the soldiers. According to the agreement, all the survivors joining the Fishbone Army would receive housing and upper-class citizen treatment, and their family would receive lower citizen treatment. Either contributing in war and being promoted to knight, their family would also enjoy upper-class citizen treatment. As of today, more than 20 community-sized survivors have joined Fishbone Base. All the people were incorporated into a newly created foreign army with Zhao Gang as the commander. Currently, there were only 81 people in the force, but everyone was a sharpshooter. With a bit of training, they could become a force to be reckoned with. So far, the Fishbone Base's soldiers had exceeded the 300 mark. The day of the decisive battle was gradually approaching. Chapter 198, The Sword Wielder. The God's Cane was formerly known as God's Cane Space-Based Kinetic Energy Weapons System. NATO completed the deployment of the weapons system in 2030, but now its combat ability was no longer limited to kinetic energy attack. Over the past 100 years, NATO had continuously perfected this weapon system. Although its core attack was still a vertical strike by tungsten rod bombs, in addition to that, NATO had also added high-power microwave weapon HPM, wide-area electromagnetic pulse EMP, as well as particle shields aboard the weapon system. NATO completely transformed it into a hedgehog-like existence, a near-Earth orbit weapon platform. Though Jiang Chen had already experienced the power of this weapon, after listening to Lin Lin's explanation, he still got astonished. Seeing the shock on Jiang Chen's face, Lin Lin haughtily raised her head and paused before continuing. That is a really powerful weapon. It is believed that to destroy it, PAC launched 27 nuclear missiles to the low Earth orbit, but they were all unfortunately intercepted. Finally, while the God's Cane's HMP was on cooldown after it had just attacked the Holy Shield system, relying on the Aerospace Special Forces attack at 10 crystals cost near-Earth orbit landers, they finally managed to capture it. However, before they even had the opportunity to hold the cane, NATO had initiated the God's Cane's self-destruction program in the hope of destroying it and preventing it from falling into the enemy's hands. So the superweapon that was in the service for over 150 years had turned into a space junk. No one knew this weapon better than Lin Lin. After all, she was a former PAC researcher, so she more or less understood the specifics of the weapon. Wait, space debris. Yeah, is there any problem? Lin Lin asked, tilting her head. Didn't God's cane fall onto the Earth's surface? Jiang Chen asked with a frown. Of course not, I can attest to that. The Post-War World Alliance organization had considered recovering the remains at the near-Earth orbit, but the proposal was not implemented because shortly after, the implementation of space colonization plan was passed with a landslide victory. You know what happened next? 6 colony ships were sent to the deep space. Is that so? Jiang Chen said thoughtfully. Why the sudden interest? Lin Lin was puzzled. What if someone used a supercomputer to determine that the remains of God's cane fell into the downtown of Wangai City? That's impossible. You've been duped, Lin Lin unceremoniously denied. Did I get fooled? Jiang Chen fell into deep thought. Or did everyone get fooled? This was troublesome. Inside an ancient room, a tripod incense burner stood on top of a table, smoke floated on top of it. A man with gray sideburns leaned against a recliner, his eyes were closed, and he appeared to be taking a nap. Next to him was a woman dressed in cheongsam, and though her face could not be considered gorgeous, she certainly looked graceful. The old-fashioned visage obviously didn't match the high-rise buildings outside the window. To be able to build such a large manor in such a ritzy area of 6th Street, This person must possess an immense amount of power. Indeed, the man on the chair was Cao Jinsong, the owner of Crimson Chamber of Commerce and the head of the Group of 10 Council. There was a knock at the door, and the man slightly opened his eyes. "Come in." His voice was slow and gentle but without a trace of his old age. The door slowly opened, and a woman walked in. The face was identical to the Cheongsam beauty standing beside him, almost as if they were cut out from the exact same mold. Other than being twins, there was only one explanation to this: they were clones. 9 members of the council have sent large-scale forces to the metropolis. Among them, the double-headed Bull Chamber of Commerce was the largest, with a total of 207 people, 2 spider tanks, and 5 armored vehicles. Hearing his secretary's report, Cao Jinsong's eyes narrowed while nodding. When she finished, he briefly pondered for a moment before asking, "What about that Zhao Chenwu? Did he do anything?" That person was slightly shrewder compared to the other council members, and his sight was not blinded by the dazzling brilliance of the crystals. He deployed scouts to Luzhu and also sent a team to the city center, but their teams did not advance and just lagged behind our team, the secretary reported as she pushed her eyeglasses up. Cao Jinsong suddenly laughed. The wrinkles that had been etched on his face through the passage of time blossomed and transformed him into a kind old man. The laughter, however, carried a few strands of menace. Although everyone wants to be the person wielding that sword, it would be interesting if that sword didn't exist in the first place. Conclusive evidence and foreign spying. Just these 2 points alone seem to be enough evidence to prove the existence of God's cane. Is it that time already? Cao Jinsong looked at the smoke above the incense burner and smiled. The expressionless secretary just quietly looked at him, without saying a word. "Bring that thing over." "It has already been prepared." A trace of a smile appeared on the female secretary's face. She took out the holographic computer pen from her pocket and handed it to him. He took the holographic computer pen, but his forefinger stopped at the start button. On the metal surface, 2 faces were reflected, one old and the other young. The young face belonged to his wife. She was so frail that she couldn't get through the first year. Before she passed away, he promised her that he would bring order to this chaotic wasteland. Afterwards, he would join her down there. After the collapse of all civilizations, a new civilization would be reborn from the ashes. The new civilization would be powerful as ever and rise from the phoenix fire. It would learn from the past mistakes of the ruined civilization and abandon any weaknesses from the past civilization. In this radiation-filled wasteland, not only the mutants' claws and humans' marksmanship evolved, but also things of a higher level had also evolved. 13 years ago, the walls of 6th Street were built. The gathering place built by the survivors of the settlement gave birth to the seed of civilization. However, this seed had been dormant for far too long. Even though the expedition brought prosperity to it, it was only a basic level of prosperity. When it came to one's own interest, the council would engage into endless squabbles. Without a unified voice, nothing would come out of it. He had enough of these endless disputes. The people from Northern Alliance District would perhaps come, but definitely not at this time. What they wanted was definitely not the God's cane, but something entirely different. 10 years ago, the unification of the Northern Alliance was completed. If this continued, 6th Street would no longer be its match. It would become a mere speck in the history. But everything here was the fruit of his hard labor, and he couldn't bear to end like this. This piece of land needs a dictatorship. Hero or criminal, only history will tell, muttering to himself. Cao Jinsong closed his eyes. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and looked at the secretary in front of him. "Chin Lion, could you lend me some courage?" The woman didn't say anything and merely put her hand on his. The woman in Cheongsam standing beside him also came over and held out her hand. Taking a deep breath, a crazed expression returned to his face. "Then let's begin." He pressed the button. A fire started burning, and the manor of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce in the 6th Street was completely incinerated. Rumor had it that it was the conspiracy of Zhao Corporation plotting for the treasure. At the same time, another fire broke out in the center of the city dozens of kilometers away. It was the fire of civil war. Chapter 199, Civil War. What do you think is the boss planning? A soldier wielding a rifle and clad in carbon nanotube armor walked at the forefront of the troops. I don't know. The commander next to him was silent. The tactical helmet hid the expression on his face, but the way he was looking around betrayed the anxiousness in his heart. They were Zhao Corporation's private soldiers. 2 spider tanks, 5 armored vehicles, 4 modified trucks, 20 power armors, and 120 soldiers. 80% of their fighting force had been placed on the gambling table. There were only 5 kilometers left before they reached the metropolis. The area was filled with nuclear craters, a place not even the death claws would dare to enter. The order that Jiang Chen had issued was very vague. Follow the troops of Crimson Chamber of Commerce, wait for further orders. Just simply follow. The 2 sentries in the front row weren't the only ones who were anxious, but also the squad leader, Chen Wei, sitting in the armored vehicle, looked grave. Staring at the screen of the Wanderer tanks, Chen Wei swallowed. 10-meter long, 3.8-meter wide, and 2.6-meter tall, weighed 112 tons, and could accommodate 3-4 passengers. Its main weapon was the 52-type particle cannon and a 2 kg class electromagnetic pulse cannon as coaxial guns. Its whole body was covered with 140 mm thick A-grade steel armor with a built-in high-density supramolecular compartment that could withstand high-energy neutron radiation caused by a neutron bomb explosion, while the particle shield could effectively resist energy weapons attacks. It was practically a moving fortress. A wave of zombies advanced, but under the giant's oppression, the only thing the zombies could do was to provide lubrication for its track with its flesh and fat. The thick primary cannon was covered in snow and had never fired a single shot the moment it left the base. The 2 kg class electromagnetic pulse cannon also appeared very dormant and would only occasionally fire whenever it encountered a Russian. Under the power and influence of this metallic monster, even in the danger-filled metropolis, these 2 forces couldn't provide much resistance. They stopped, the sentry from the front row casually said. It's probably their time to rest. Because the zombies in the forefront had already been cleared out by the Crimson Chamber of Commerce, they didn't even need to fire, so they could casually chat among themselves. The expression under the sentry's tactical helmet gradually turned to that of horror. No, this is odd. There's something wrong with their cannon. Vroom! The sound of a cannon firing drowned his astonished voice. The 2 kg bomb easily separated his flesh and ripped through the roof of the armored vehicle. We're under attack by our allied force. Damn it, what do they think they're doing? Take cover, go take cover in the bunker, quick. Attention everyone. That is not a friendly force, I repeat, that is not a friendly force. Chen Wei's voice began to echo in everyone's communication channel. The forces in the forefront who were taking cover immediately began to fire back. The aerodynamic spider tank slid around on the main road. 6 sets of weight-bearing wheels were separated in the middle to form into 4 square-shaped mechanical legs as they quickly began to climb on top of the half-destroyed buildings. The remaining 4 armored vehicles, along with modified trucks, also promptly turned around the corner, using the terrain to avoid the barrel of the Wanderer's tank. Whereas the infantries in the area searched for shelter, while taking out their rifles and rocket-propelled grenade launchers and begun firing back. Because Chen Wei sensed something was amiss from the start, he ordered the team to form a long formation. Although it was much easier to defend against zombies in a square formation, if an enemy attacked at the front, the long formation would allow the force in the back to quickly disperse and minimize the loss. Have they found the remains of the satellite yet? Chen Wei struck at the armor shell as he stared at the image transmitted from the Solider's tactical helmet. The reckless movement of the tank completely ignored the rocket launchers flying towards it. Even if he had 2 spider tanks as backups, he still didn't have the confidence to win. Permission to fire back. 4 big yellow characters appeared in the center of the screen, and a rueful smile appeared on Chen Wei's face. They already started to retaliate. Although he was counting on the boss to stop the war through diplomacy, it now seemed like they have to fight through it. Boom! 2 rounds of shell were fired at a 50 degrees angle from the roof of a half-destroyed building. With an orange flame trail, it smashed onto the Wanderer tank's turret before it got deflected into the window of an abandoned shop. The shell was deflected. The eerie blue electric arc had enveloped the shell of the tank, but didn't even leave a dent. Damn it, that's an electromagnetic reactive armor. Specially designed against piercing shells, through a unique interaction field, the metal shell could reach superconducting state after breaking through a certain speed threshold. Under the powerful magnetic field outside the armor, according to the Meissner effect, shells that had become superconductors would produce an enormous magnetic field in the opposite direction, thereby attenuating its kinetic energy and shifting the projectile angle. This armor had a miraculous use against the conductive material of the electromagnetic cannon shells. It also had certain effects on the artillery steel core armor-piercing shells. Change into insulation shells. Roger. The Wanderer tank quickly retreated, and because of the angle limitation of the cannon, it could only aim at the spider tank on the roof with an increasing distance. However, the spider tanks occupying a favorable terrain wouldn't allow its plan to succeed. So while on the move, they fired at the metal monster on the road. Zombies, Crimson Chamber of Commerce, and Zhao Corporation. These 3 giants engaged with each other. With the heavy armors leaving the battle, the zombies that weren't blocked lunged at the 2 parties exchanging fire while howling and screaming. If they were just fighting with the zombies alone, these well-trained soldiers would definitely not let these dumb things get closer. Today, however, everyone was not just facing the threat of zombies, but the enemy's bullets as well. Everything devolved into an utter chaos. Damn it, their firepower is too suppressive. We need backup. Leaning against the side of the bunker, while shooting at the incoming zombies, the soldiers in carbon nanotube combat suits roared at the communication device they're clutching. Someone's down, medics. Damn it, it's the Death Claw. Zombies had broken through the line of defense, requesting armored vehicle support. Negative, the enemy's anti-armor units have yet to be cleared, unable to enter the battle. Turning off the noisy communication channel, Chen Wei rubbed his forehead. A ferocious glint appeared on his face, and his eyes were locked on the several big characters on the screen. Available support, Disaster 32 cruise missile. Just now, he finally understood the meaning of the phrase, caution, that Zhao Chenwu left before leaving. From the start, the boss had already suspected that Crimson Chamber of Commerce had gone rogue. This type of limited superweapon was definitely not used in dealing with the zombies. If Crimson Chamber of Commerce's trump card was the Wanderer tank, then the trump card of Zhao Corporation was this. The bombs sold to Fishbone Base were only old technology, while the more powerful weapons have always been kept under Zhao Chenwu's control. Without any hesitation, Chen Wei pressed the launch button. Without a warning. On a barren field 100 kilometers away, the flat ground was suddenly split open. After the item used to camouflage was removed, the metal plate hidden under the layer of the soil was gradually separated. This was the missile well left by Pac. To escape air raids, this improvised one-time-use missile silo was common on this piece of land. The light blue signal light extended from the top to the bottom of the silo. Missile Silo 72 is about to fire. Workers, please take shelter immediately. The electronic voice announcing its launch had scared the mutant mice that were biting the roots of plants away. In a flash, the smoke burst and instantly covered the whole area. The 10-meter-long missile pierced through the sky filled with radiation dust. 10 seconds before arriving at the target location, Commander, please set the target. Taking a deep breath, Chen Wei's eyes tightly locked on the rampaging Wanderer tanks. Using his finger, he dragged the crosshair onto the red box. Target lock successful. Attention! Attack A, Attack B. Immediately move away from the target area. Roger. After receiving the command, the spider tanks quickly jumped off the building. The 6 pairs of weight-bearing wheels formed together, reverting back to driving mode. Seeing that the enemy units suddenly retreated, the Wanderer tank, realizing that it might have been targeted by long-range weapons, immediately fired heat-induced bait bombs and electromagnetic decoy targets. It then shifted into overdrive and crashed into the side of the building. The solid concrete wall disintegrated like a piece of paper under the impact, as it attempted to use the 10-meter-tall building as cover. But it was too late. A trail of gray smoke instantly fell from the sky. Suddenly, everything dimmed down. The arc-shaped flames instantly ignited. The shockwave didn't just blow away the concrete blocks and scattered the particles' shield away, but also the armor shell as well. The buildings that survived the aftershock of the nuclear blast had collapsed due to the direct impact of the cruise missile. The Disaster 32 cruise missile was designed based on a fictitious aircraft carrier, so taking care, a tank was definitely no big deal. Even those from thousands of meters away felt the tremor of the ground. The flames on the horizon made the thick snow lose its color and deafened the continuous gun firing shots. The tide of war was instantly reversed. The Crimson Chamber of Commerce that just lost its strongest armored unit was immediately under heavy fire suppression by the 2 spider tanks. Aside from the Wanderer tanks, they didn't bring more armored units, only 30 infantries and dozens of powered armors. Seeing that his own soldiers had the upper hand, Chen Wei slowly let out a sigh of relief. Zhao Corporation had already won the battle. Although the price was expensive, the 6th Street Council was probably making a ruckus at this moment, but it was something not for him to worry about. Gunshots were getting sparse. The soldiers of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce fought valiantly, preparing to fight to the bitter end. But this still could not change the outcome of their defeat. Enemy units have been cleared. Hearing the communication by his ear, Chen Wei was relieved. Regroup. Set up a blockade to block the zombies, recuperate and prepare to head back. What is that? God. 2 soldiers opened the trunk of the captured armored vehicle. Staring at the screen, Chen Wei's pupil contracted. Nuclear bomb. Staring at the distant mushroom cloud, Cao Jinsong's face flashed a touch of mockery. At the moment, he was standing on a barren land a few kilometers away from the wilderness, and there was a pickup truck parked next to him. Sheesh, you finally used Disaster 32. He shoved the binoculars in his pocket, shook his head, and returned to the truck. Whether or not the sword of Damocles exists, the sword hanging above his head had disappeared. The price of a Wanderer tank in exchange for the trump card that scared the living daylight out of him. A nuclear missile, and 72 lives in exchange for 80% of Zhao Chenwu's force. And Wanderer tanks, he still had 4 of these left. If it had been a poker game, then the outcome of the battle had already been decided. Chapter 200, at the same time. Did you hear the noise? Sun Jiao raised her eyebrows as she asked Jiang Chen. The snow was thick, as the 2 were standing on the bank of Teifu River. I think so. Did something explode? Jiang Chen stared towards the east, but the flurry blocked his vision. There were 2 explosions. It was hard to tell which one was louder. It seemed to be from somewhere in the far distance. Let's not be distracted anymore. Sun Jiao sighed, her eyes narrowing while staring across the river. The party is about to start. You are right, Jiang Chen smiled. All combat units have been sent to the front line. 271 soldiers, 8 tigers, as well as 15 modified pickup trucks. The Black Blood mercenaries have already sneaked past the river, as they had taken cover on a snow hill a few kilometers away. Everything was prepared. He dragged the scarf away from his neck, as white mist emerged from Jiang Chen's mouth. Let's start. Understood, my commander. Sun Jiao naughtily blinked her eyes before she turned around to step into the T3 power armor. The night began to fall as the snowfall slowed. The searchlight in the center of the camp, as well as the four corners, shook rhythmically and lit up the snow hills around them. Rows of mutated humans carried rifles as they patrolled their camp. Their steel armor, lined with fur, prevented their skin from being in direct contact with the steel. There were around 50 trucks parked on the empty lot in front of the camp. The daunting gun and cannon barrels create a metal forest. White sheets covered them as they blended into the snow. They didn't even consider the enemy across the river an opponent. In their eyes, only a round of attack would allow them to drag those cowards out of the trenches and shred them into pieces. Shooting was not their strong suit. Because of their fat finger, to make it easy to shoot, they had to saw off the trigger ring. This was also why they preferred machine guns, as most machine guns were not as small as rifles. Due to their build, they didn't need to consider the large, heavy firepower and weight of the guns. The last group of soldiers had arrived at the base. Once the ice is strong enough to withstand the weight of their armor, they would sound the horn to charge. But that day will never happen. Did you hear something? The mutated human at the gate of the base tilted his head and looked at his comrade. The mutated human raised his eyebrows, but didn't seem to find the source of the noise. Look, what is that? There were screams, and a mutated human pointed at the dark sky. Something had fallen from the radiation dust. It carried a visible trail of flame and began to accelerate. But they didn't have more time to think about it. Boom! The searchlight in the center of the base and the four corners shattered with the noise. The light that shined on the four sides instantly faded. At that moment, a few trails of orange flame rose in the sky and exploded. The blinding white light turned the base into daylight. It was a lighting shell. Damn it, it's an enemy strike. The mutated human standing at the gate roared out before he took out the light machine gun behind his back and began to fire at the snow hill. The mutated humans didn't expect that the human taking cover behind barriers would attack them during the night. The mutated humans were not worried by the human's night strike. Rather, they felt a sense of excitement. They are asking for their own death. But that kind of confidence didn't last long. Under the cover of the lighting shell, a missile with a trail of red flame had fallen from the sky. In the terrified vision of all mutated humans, it landed in the middle of the base. Boom! Flames instantly erupted. It engulfed the vehicles covered by white, the mutated humans preparing to enter the vehicle, as well as the supplies hidden under the snow. The merciless chain explosion started. It played a symphony inside the mutated human's base. Running, screaming, desperately trying to remove the scorching steel armor, and falling when out of energy as they waited for the flame Grim Reaper's cultivation. The steel debris and snow were blown into the air as they melted into liquid in the heat wave, as if it was a fireworks celebration. It was living hell. No one suspected the rats across the river possessed a cruise missile. Of course, it was obviously not a cruise missile. It was only a rocket equipped with 1,000 kilograms of concentrated explosives. 1 kilogram was 20 crystals, and along with the cost of the missile, the mega firework cost Jiang Chen 30,000 crystals. But so what compared to the effect it caused? The 30,000 crystals were well spent. Gazing at the fire across the river, Jiang Chen pulled out the flare gun, and he shouted at the top of his lungs. Attack! Roger! The red flare broke through the night sky. 8 homing voices rose as the 5 kg bombs smashed into the base across the river. The shock of the missile explosion had blown away the snow piles. There was no cover between the two forces. With the range advantage, the electric pulse cannon unloaded its firepower. The infantry with their rifles stepped out of the trenches. Under the leadership of 6 power armors, they all charged at the opposing river bank. The Black Blood mercenaries, who have crossed the river, engaged in crossfire with the mutated humans already. The rain dropped like lighting shells lit up the night sky. Because the explosive was made of magnesium powder and other oxidants, the flames didn't fade away for a long time. Under the intense light, the position of the mutated humans was fully exposed, but it was a problem even for the mutated humans with rifles to aim at the target in the dark. They could only respond by firing randomly into darkness. Seeing the battle visual on his tablet, a smile emerged on Jiang Chen's face. The anti-air power had been completely dissolved. The unexpected missile had not only wiped out half of their force, it completely disrupted their command structure, which forced them to fight on their own. The mutated humans wielding armors were strong, but only in the front. On an open field, if they were surrounded with bullets flying in all directions, mutated humans without formation would only be slaughtered. The infantries fired with pace as they pushed forward under the cover of cannons. Within the virtual reality training system, they have practiced this countless amount of times. Sun Jiao led the 6 power armors with their high mobility as they roamed among the mutated humans to prevent them from gathering information. Seeing the swiftness of this girl's action, even if she was in a metal box, recalling her shyness under himself, the feeling was indescribable. With a face slightly red, Jiang Chen coughed as he got rid of all the unhealthy idea in his mind. The battle was approaching its end. The soldiers used their gun barrels to smash the half-dead mutated humans as they finished the kill off with a dagger. There was no need for hostage. Death was the best fate for these monsters. He retracted the tablet as he got in the armored vehicle. Cross the river. Yes, Commander. As the leader of the base, Jiang Chen began to realize he could no longer fight like a soldier on the front line. Since Fishbone Base had already passed the initial growth phase where they lacked people, he gladly accepted the prospective Sun Jiao insisted, which was to stay in the back and wait for the battle to end. The gunshots in the distance began to die down. The armored vehicle drove over the bridge. The northern wind carried a hint of warmth. Jiang Chen, who sat on top of the car, looked at the remains of the mutated human's base after the explosion, but his mind had already drifted elsewhere. This was where the mutated humans stored most of their supplies. Even if there were still 2,000-something mutated humans there, this major loss would render them unable to fight another battle. These supplies were transported from the Northern Alliance District 1,500 kilometers away. It must not have been easy. Now that these supplies are destroyed, and the spy Sun Zioru was captured by Jiang Chen, what would the Dusk that suffered defeat do? Speaking of this, the defender had no action at all, as even Jiang Chen almost forgot that he had an alliance. What are they planning?